Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in. Now don't click away because I think that this is a very entertaining video, but I do need to give you a little bit of a preface before we continue on. So I had a debate on Modern Day Debate, on the Modern Day Debate YouTube channel, where it was a 2v2 Kamala versus Trump debate. And I think, personally, that Kamala is objectively the better candidate. And not only that, I think that I have the facts on my side in that Kamala being the better candidate. And so I thought to myself, hey, this is a slam dunk case. There's no way that this guy is going to get the better of me. They're just going to give the same old tired talking points from Trump that at the end of the day, most of them are lies. And so I thought to myself, no problem. Let me go ahead and write up my intro, and I'm going to go ahead and just have the debate. It's going to be really cool. What I didn't necessarily anticipate at the time, or I didn't really understand the severity of, was the tactics of the interlocutor. So there was a YouTuber by the name of, Robb? I don't know his full name. Robb. You'll see it in the video, where he engaged in so much gish-galloping. For those who are not aware, that's where you make multiple arguments in a single statement. It makes it impossible to actually have a rebuttal. So being a gish-galloper in combination of a 2v2 made it painfully apparent that I would state, rebut a point or a fact, and he would gish-gallop his points, 7 or 8 points. And because I had taken, a good deal of speaking time, and this Robb guy would take a huge deal of speaking time, the moderator doing what the moderator should be doing, telling the other people, hey, you can talk too. But the problem is that this guy had gish-galloped so much that, I basically needed to rebut. So at first, I kind of had this mentality of all right, don't interrupt. You're on Modern Day Debate. Try not, do everything you can to avoid interruption. Be nice, because you can be very combative sometimes, right? I'm thinking that to myself. Well, after a while, I think there was a single message that sparked it, where they said, "Why aren't you rebutting them?" And I thought to myself, I was like, you're right. Why am I not rebutting them? He's doing 7, 8, 9, 10 points in a single minute, just rattling them off. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just interrupt them. Just interrupt them with the counterpoint, so that way people realize that this is ridiculous. Now, I noticed that there were generally more Trump supporters than there were Kamala supporters. So rhetoric-wise, I don't think it was the best move. But, I mean, if it was a 1v1 debate, I think it would have done a lot better, rhetorically speaking. But because it was a 2v2, it was basically impossible for me to get a win on a gish-galloper. Even though the reality is the facts are on my side. Worst yet, right? I spent a bunch of time working on an intro that I thought was very poetic, that it was well thought out. And I thought it was going to be this kind of a cool intro. And they just lambasted me over this intro. And not only that, sadly, I read it too slowly, where I timed myself. I thought I had enough time, and they even said, hey, you get an extra 2 minutes. So I slowed myself down, but I slowed myself down too much, which basically meant that I got cut off right towards the end, where I could not say my last piece. So this particular video is going to be about, I'm going to just detail my intro. I'm just going to give you the intro, the full thing, And then shortly after the intros, we're going to watch the full modern day debate stream. Hopefully that will be enough. Tell me what you think, because I got to tell you, my intro, they just lambasted me on this intro. They didn't like it. They thought it was too poetic. They just didn't like, but I mean, I don't know, maybe you guys like it, you know, maybe whoever's listening to this will like it. Anyway, let's get on with the video. We walk headfirst into flames, and I don't even see the people engulfed bother themselves with screaming. They simply smile with a red hat on, and only when it is too late do they regret their actions. And even some don't even do that, as their bodies remain a charred husk to be dragged away by the sycophants of an orange dictator. Must not have been a real supporter, as alarm bells echoed beyond valleys, yet it mattered not, for the sycophants cut their ears off years ago to maintain their blind devotion to the orange man. There I stood, peering at a giant screen, faded and covered in stains, audio caked with interference as the splendor of the orange man had faded with every broadcast. Yet I remembered what he had said, and what was repeated and touted, torches lit in his name, brethren treated as common refuse, to not be trusted any longer, and the sycophants chided and jeered at my brothers around me. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. June 16th, 2015, campaign announcement. You also had people who are very fine people on both sides, which was said in response during the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where white supremacists and court protesters clashed. He's not a war hero. He was a war hero because he wasn't captured. And I like people who weren't captured, in reference to his own alliance, the Republican Party, John McCain, July 18th, 2015. Why are we having these people from shithole countries come here? In reference to Haiti, El Salvador, and African countries on July 11th, 2018. Donald J. Trump is calling for the total and complete shutdown of all Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what's going on. It was a response that spread Islamophobia and discrimination after these statements were uttered on December 7th, 2015. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? On July 14th, 2019, targeting 4 Democratic congresswomen over a tweet. I'd like to punch him in the face at a rally in Iowa to a protester. If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? On February 1st, 2016. Send her back, towards Representative Ilhan Omar, July 17th, 2019. The chants continued. The sycophants cheered, and they each cut each other's ears off and opened their mouths wide to chant his name, screaming digitally and vocally for all to hear. And then, as all hope faded, he lost. The sycophants, pearly-eyed, covered in tears, took to their clubs, pitchforks, and guns, storming the Capitol the day the transfer of power was to be enacted to an old, sensible man with beliefs that any would find sensible in a sensible world. Yet, to the sensible and even the sycophants, this was not a sensible world anymore. The election was rigged, they said. The Justice Department is rigged, they said. The FBI is rigged, they said. The courts are rigged, they said. The media is rigged, they said. It was all rigged. Even the judges he appointed were rigged, to the sycophants, to the orange man. Yet the sensible considered the positions and reviewed the evidence for widespread fraud across many states and districts, empty-handed of the evidence that they said they would find. Yet it mattered not, for the sycophants cut their ears and only spoke louder. There they were along the Capitol building. They screamed the names of the politicians. Where's Nancy? And hang Mike Pence. Fight like hell, said the orange man, to the angry crowd. He sent out information to his vice president. Do not certify this election. He told them, and his vice president said no. And there they were, storming the Capitol, all because they cut their ears off and would not hear the truth. But it mattered not, for they had the Orange Man behind them, and he would never steer them the wrong way as they tread into flame, would they? The Orange Man, who long since left the conflagration at the foot of the Capitol, was quietly watching TV from the White House. It was only hours after heavy pressuring from his own staff that he begrudgingly said over video, "I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election and everybody knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people and law and order. We don't want anybody hurt." Though it was already too late, for their ears were cut off. It required the slow deployment of law enforcement and the National Guard. The mayor declared a 6 p.m. curfew for arrest. The leaders spoke high and wide to stop the violence. Then and only then did the rioters eventually disperse. This left the once beautiful United States scarred in its democratic process for years to come. "It could never happen here," spoke my parents from Chile, who knew what coups d'etats looked like from memory. "We have too many checks and balances of power to prevent this from happening," they said. He refused a peaceful transfer of power, but it mattered not, for the sycophants have cut their ears off as they walk into flames, blindly smiling with a red hat on. The sycophants were included among the others under the sole condition, an unconditional demand for loyalty, and they handed a dagger to each one and stitches to close the wounds shut where their ears were. The Orange Man revered himself as the only one capable saving our beloved country. "I will be dictator for one day," he said. But why would that matter? Their ears were cut off long ago. They would not listen to reason. They walked into flames, covered, and even requested gasoline to cover their bodies to be even more splendorous in their doom. He vilified his opponents. He spread misinformation and blatantly false statements. He reinforced his image of a strong leader. He gave America first rhetoric, calling those who were also citizens rapists and criminals. It mattered not to the sycophants. Their ears were cut off long ago. He scapegoated the minority, often marginalized group that amassed no more than 2% of the total population. By stoking the flames of xenophobia, they could play into the natural fears of others. There were those on his side who refused to cut their ears to the truth. The sycophants angrily shoved the knife in their hand, demanding that they cut their ears off to the truth, and they tossed it in the trash. Must not have been a real supporter. "Rhino! Rhino!" they chanted and jeered, teeth bared and ears cut off. "The press is the enemy of the people," said the Orange Man, screaming at journalists and media covering him. "Fake news!" he yelled, and the sycophants screamed in unison, and the media cowered and feared, only doing their jobs as they have been doing for over 100 years. They thought that they could not trust the media, who had a vested interest in preserving their reputation by speaking the truth. "Biased source!" they shouted, and those without ears replaced their media with those that had no journalistic integrity, often going to social media websites for their facts instead, especially replacing something that sometimes lied with something that had no barrier to lying at all. The nationalization of our masses will succeed only when, aside from all the positive struggle for the soul of our people, their international poisoners are exterminated. Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler. "We have people coming to the country who are trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them, but we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people, they are animals." Orange Man, 2018, in reference to certain immigrants. The stronger must dominate and not blend with the weaker, thus sacrificing his own greatness, wrote Hitler angrily. When the looting starts, the shooting starts, referring to the protesters during the George Floyd unrest. There it was, straight from one of the most damaging leaders in history, arguing his xenophobia similar to the Orange Man, but yet the sycophants cut their ears off years ago and would not hear the truth as they walked themselves into flame, skin coated in gasoline. They spoke with their populism, their nationalism, and their xenophobia. They framed themselves as defenders of the nations against external and internal threats. They used their racially charged and inflammatory language, and they always target others as demons of their world. Yet the sycophants did not care, for they cut their ears off long ago, walking into flames with a red hat. Then there's myself, who turned away the knife to cut off my ears as a purveyor of truth, one who looks at facts and argues what is empirically verified, being asked a completely insane question of, who should I vote for? Well, as for me, as one who did not cut his own ears off, I think you know the answer.
So we are going to kick it over to the other side to respond to some of what they've just heard and try to get into an open discussion. So I will remind everybody once again, we've got several super chats already coming in. Thank you so much to everybody who's already put in there. We appreciate your support of the channel, and we do have other live events that will be coming up. So yeah, once again, super appreciate the support. We'll get to your questions at the end. Rob, you were trying to jump in there, so I'll hand it on over to you.
Absolutely, Josh, if you don't mind, I'd like to respond. Now, I'll admit, though, to being inspired. I thought to talk about issues that affected Americans in a way such that the average person could understand. But I've been inspired to understand that prose is not the way to go in this debate. So if I may, with some impromptu poetry to respond to that great soliloquy that we just heard. And as they stood, glistening skin, yellowing from lack of nutrition, no longer could they afford groceries, no longer could they recognize their communities. As crime ran rampant, as they were locked down as non-essential, as their First Amendment was stripped from within, they looked to the heavens. Where could they find sustenance? And then they saw the answer. They could eat the anger at the mean tweets. They could go to the argument of 2016. Therefore, sustenance is not worth what understanding that condemning a man for rhetoric as Hitler could be. January 6th would be their food, they yelled, and therefore they did cut off their ears, not for lack of hearing, but because they must eat something and ears were better than nothing being offered. That was quite literally one of the most insane, hilarious, and absolutely asinine speeches that I think should be clipped and will be clipped to represent exactly what this election represents. Discussions about mean tweets and angry things that were said going as far as 2016, relitigating January 6th once more, completely doing what I called out would be done in our opening statements, as did Josh, that you would focus on the character of Donald Trump, that you would say that he is this unique threat, and you would completely ignore all substance as to how his policies were better for even the groups that you claim are marginalized. You said nothing at all, either of you, about the economy. You said nothing about foreign policy. You said nothing about immigration, or for that any other policies. You didn't even mention one thing of Kamala Harris. You are both indicative of the exact problem. You parrot the establishment talking points, so at least you have your ears for that, I guess. And you ignore the suffering that everyday Americans of all creeds, ethnicities, backgrounds, and religions are suffering from now, so that you can stand on your high horse and repeat these talking points that Trump is some unique danger. Talking points, by the way, that were repetitions, as Classy did, of 2016. We were told he would lock up all gay people. He would kick all brown people out of the country, and yet nothing. Most of those communities were doing remarkably better then than they were under the Harris-Biden administration.
All right, let's give them a chance to respond
Sure.
to some of what you're putting out there. And if anybody sees me chuckling over here, my brain all of a sudden told me we should have brought a drum beat for this one. All right, so Classy, if you want to take a chomp at this one, and if it's quick, then we'll bounce it back and forth. But I do want to get Josh in here too. So go ahead there, Classy.
Yeah, so there was a lot that was said there. So the whole thing about mean tweets. So, you know, when you're president, your words have influence on people. And I think it's very important that we elect someone that actually cares about what they say. So here's a excerpt from the Jack Smith indictment that I find pretty interesting. This was regarding the situation in Arizona. There was a fake claim that non-citizens have voted. They asked Trump to show evidence, but he never did. And then they tried to get the Arizona House Speaker, Rusty Bowers, to replace the electors with fake electors. He refused, despite the fact that he voted for Trump, and that he advocated for his reelection. And then a couple of days later, an angry mob of Trump supporters started chanting outside, calling him a pedophile and all sorts of derogatory things, while he was taking care of his sick adult, of his daughter who had liver cancer. And this is just one example of many situations where he has spread just like false information, misinformation that his own campaign staff, and again, his own party officials have told him that's blatantly false. And it's led to so many people believing that, yeah, like all this stuff is true.
All right, let's let Josh respond here.
Yeah, I just want to respond to my esteemed interlocutor over there. They talk about, what I predicted they would talk about, which would be personality rather than policy positions or platforms. And you saw that with both of their opening statements. They're just hurling ad hominem attacks at Trump and criticizing things he said that they thought were mean or hurtful. I want to talk to the everyday, average, normal Americans out there that are watching this, and talk in normal speech and normal language. The way the opposing side opened up is indicative of why people aren't fans of the left right now. Average Americans feel like these people have their heads in the clouds. They just don't talk about the things that people care about. We care about shutting down the border, not letting criminals flood into our country. We care about the economy. We care about being able to provide for our family. We care about having auto insurance that isn't doubling every few years. We care about being able to afford groceries. We care about the price of gas. These are all things that have gotten progressively worse under Harris and Biden. And they're going to keep getting worse if they vote in Harris, the same person, for the next 4 years. So you're just going to keep hearing this. It's the refrain that we've all heard from the media and from the Democrats, which is Trump is bad. He said something mean. I don't like what he said. I want to hear concrete, crystallized policy positions from Harris that they are in favor of, and I want an explanation of how those are prescriptive and how those are going to help our country.
Yep, very easy. So Vice President Harris and Governor Walz is cutting taxes for over 100 million Americans, and unlike Donald Trump, whose Project 2025 agenda is raising taxes for the middle class, Vice President Harris, as well as Governor Walz, will make sure that nobody is earning less than $400,000 a year will pay more in taxes. I'm sure you've already heard of the, what is it? I think $7,000 child tax credit. What is it?
$1,000.
We've already observed that. There's a new $6,000 tax cut to help families pay for higher costs of childcare for the first year of life. There's going to be, of course, an additional, and as stated by economists, that Trump's taxes will actually be an additional $4,000 if he does get elected. But hey, why don't we go ahead and talk about some actual facts, right? You said crime is rampant. Where are you seeing that? I don't see that. The FBI statistics show that crime is not rampant. It's down. Is it up?
Yeah, let's focus on that. Let's hand it over to Rob.
Yeah, let's do it back and forth instead of just along. I'm cool with that. Great question. Are crime statistics up? First, we see a concession from our opponents that the record of Donald Trump was superior with the economy, with immigration, and with foreign policy. That is true. Now what they're doing is saying the experts predict things will be bad. I just want to take a moment to say that the experts also predicted that Trump would collapse the stock market and the economy if he was elected in 2016. They were incorrect.
They predicted that
the
with
experts,
the steel tariffs.
please,
and
the experts, please. Please, we were quiet. Well, so I understand the back and forth's good, but the constant interruption won't work so well. So they also predicted that the economy,
like keep people on a not
right. You're did they? Yes or no?
Let's just continue then in our own space for a little bit till we get to it. Okay. So Rob, the floor is yours.
Sure. Experts such as Paul Krugman, that are award-winning economists, predicted the economy would crash under Donald Trump. They were wrong. They also, these same experts, predicted that the economy would do fantastic under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They were wrong. They said that inflation would be transitory. They were wrong. They said that their economy would be better for the American people. They were wrong. They're wrong in all of that. And now they're saying this time, but trust us, this time, we're right. We don't have to guess what the experts will say that have been wrong over and over again when it comes to the economy, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to foreign policy, because we actually have the records of Harris, who admitted she wouldn't have done anything different than Biden, and Trump. So again, once more, they'll gaslight you that the records say this. He asked specifically about crime. Yes, it's true that the FBI tries to manipulate the statistics in order to say that crime's gone down. We see that they've recently just had to change so that when the moderators in ABC said crime had fallen every year, that actually wasn't true. In 1 year, it went up. The crime was up under Donald Trump in 2020, largely because Democrats decided they would take to the streets during COVID when the rest of us were told they had to lock down and have mass crime waves across this country, which did lead to increased crime. Yes, we know that Democrat foot soldiers will engage in riots and crimes all across this country if they don't get their way. I understand that you want to put clever graphics up while I'm speaking. I don't think that I'd be talking about gish-galloping for someone who gave an opening statement was just a poem that they had pre-written that made no arguments whatsoever. Right. Anyways, when we're looking at the crime statistics from the FBI, when we're looking at the crime statistics from the FBI, we can see that they've been manipulated, and we can see if we use better metrics like the National Crime Victimization Survey that doesn't just deal with reported crimes that the police dealt with, but actually people that are saying they were victim of crimes. Those numbers have precipitously gone up every year since Harris Biden have been in office.
Let's pass the ball back to First Amender. Go ahead.
Yeah, wow, that was a lot of gish galloping. Yeah, so I'm going to ask you again. Was the FBI? I'm just curious, right? Because I looked at the FBI crime statistics. Is crime up or down under Biden?
I just repeated. I'll repeat my answer. So first, we can see that the FBI manipulates the statistics, as we've already seen. That
so the FBI is bullshit, right?
That's part of what I'm saying. We saw, yes or no? Did the FBI recently change their number? Real quick, I answered your question.
Who do I go to? Who do I go to?
What's that?
Who do I go to if I can't trust the FBI statistics?
Well, why don't you answer the yes/no question that I asked you, and then you answer the yes or no question? The yes/no question that I asked you was: will you admit that the FBI just recently changed the numbers that showed that crime actually did increase in 2022?
All right. What? We'll let you answer.
Will you admit that the FBI just recently
changed the number?
So actually,
yes.
Can I? Why would they
change
for
sure,
sure,
guys. We're gonna let Classy in here. Classy's he's been holding on and listening. So go ahead there, Classy.
So crime is down. They did change sort of the method to how they get statistics. So I think I know the source where you get it from. I think you're getting it from the Crime Prevention Center. I think it's like a gun rights advocacy group. I tried to actually go to the FBI website to download the data to see where they got the numbers that it's up. I couldn't get the numbers. So I don't know what you're talking about, but just looking at the graph, it is down 2022 and 2023 and 2024.
The numbers went up. I believe the numbers, the recent change was the numbers went down in 2021 and then back up in 2022. And now we have 2023, or maybe it was they went down in 2022 and up in 2023. But to answer First Amendment's question, go to the National Crime Victimization Survey. That's where you could go.
All right. And I just want to paint this with a little bit broader strokes, even if crime is down right now. Just look at the policy positions of the two candidates. Kamala Harris wants to allow biological men into locker rooms, sports, and restrooms, and female prisons with other real women. And she's allowed an open border where criminals have been pouring across for the last 4 years. And I want you to know that male patterns of violence do not change when a man claims to be a woman. Trans women have the same patterns of male violence as anyone else. And so that is an issue that we need to be talking about, in which the media hasn't been talking about. Is Harris going to continue to allow biological males into women's restrooms in sports? And is she going to continue to allow millions of illegals pouring into our country? Because that will affect the crime rates that are going to occur over the next 4 years.
Let's hand it back over to you, First Amender.
What does that have to do with crime statistics? I'm a little lost on that. What you don't have to like bring in your transphobia. You could just talk about the crime statistics. Okay, so we see that there's a slight increase after the FBI like decided to show that there's an increase. But you're saying that if that's the case, right? If it goes up a tiny percentage, right? You guys are saying that there's all this rampant crime. From what I'm observing, there's really not all this rampant crime.
Well, I live in Chicago.
That's
I live
BS.
in Chicago.
That's been fed to you.
And there is violence every weekend. There's 40 to 50 people.
Yeah, you're in Chicago. What? You're in a city.
Right.
That's
we don't care about. Right. And what we're saying, our argument is, first off, you're wrong. Your initial perception that you don't see crime is irrelevant. Polling shows that people feel
but you
that
don't
crime
even trust
is,
the statistics.
please, let me finish. Polling proves that people feel that crime is significant. Secondly, I gave you the best statistics, which is the National Crime Victimization Survey. You haven't touched it once. That shows that crime is up.
Crime Victimization Survey. All I did was bring up the FBI crime statistics, which is a valid source. You said you can't trust it, right? Because it's establishment media. This is what I mean by you cut your ears off and you sew them shut so that way you don't have to hear the truth. You don't care about the truth.
You're literally
not interested.
You're exhibiting the very you're exhibiting
Trump, then you obviously think that that's a bad thing. But if it's in favor of Donald Trump, you think it's the truth.
You're exhibiting the exact behavior you're criticizing me. You gave a set of statistics, which I didn't just say it's mainstream media. I don't believe it. I gave specific reasons to question those statistics. I could give more. Meanwhile, I give you what I'm saying is a better indication of crime, which are people, not just the crimes that police have gone after, which is what the FBI is looking at, crimes that they've investigated, but actually people that have suffered from crime and that are victims. And the National Crime Victimization Survey actually shows that crime is up. Now, other reasons that we shouldn't prefer the FBI numbers, in addition to clearly, even if we say it's not corruption, their methodology is flawed enough that there are significant changes, so much so that in 2022, they initially said crime was down, and now we see that it was 4.5% up.
But
also it relied, real quick, I'll finish, real quick, please stop sewing your ears shut and listen for a second, and maybe you'll understand something. But what we could also see is that these FBI numbers are reliant not just on a flawed methodology, but also in what local police tell them and the crimes that local police are willing to go after. For example, if you see in a place like LA where they stop trying to prosecute shoplifting, then all of a sudden those numbers won't show up on an FBI statistic sheet. So we can see in left-wing controlled cities all across this country that they're allowing violent criminals back on the street, that they're allowing crimes to occur without even attempting to prosecute them anymore. And the last thing I'll say on this issue is when we did see crime spike like in 2020 under Trump, that was being done by Democrats, which you haven't disagreed with. But we could also see that Democrat policies, including those supported by Kamala Harris, who actually promoted a bail fund after these rioters committed an insurrection and burned down a police station, that sort of rhetoric led to what they call the Ferguson effect, which is that police have been demoralized and defunded, which causes increased crime in the very communities, particularly African-American inner city communities like Chicago, that you don't seem to care about.
All right. Hand it
so
back
even with, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just I wanted to make sure that we wrapped it up there and just give you a chance to respond there, First Amender. I know you guys got a lot of energy, but I do want to implore Josh and Classy to jump in at any time and ask you politely to make some space for them. But go ahead there, First Amender.
Apologies. Even if I include your increased revised statistic, increasing it from the 2% to this 4%, it's still lower. And even on top of that, this revised numbers that I'm pulling up, it looks like that while murder has decreased overall, it appears that what has increased isn't murder, but rather hate crime. Hate crime. That's what increased. They revised the number to include hate crime.
That's not entirely true.
I literally just pulled it up in a Reuters article.
Okay, so then how many?
Lying? Is Reuters lying?
No, wait.
What? Is Reuters lying?
Okay, you're looking at the data. So how many? Right, you're looking at the data. Clearly, you're an expert in this. Can you tell me how many increased hate crimes there were in 2022? Go ahead. What was the number that we're at?
No, I'm just pulling this up on Reuters. I literally just Google it, and then I find real information
so you're just
from real sources, and I don't cut my ears off, kind of like what you're doing right now.
So what you've admitted was you didn't even know that the FBI revised the statistics. Please,
that's fair. I didn't know that. So then what I do is that I Google and I learn it, and then, sorry.
Okay. So what you've admitted was you didn't even know that the FBI revised those statistics, which shows even if it wasn't intentional.
That's great. Thank you for giving me the information.
Please. Please. The way this works is don't cut your ears off. Listen to when another person is speaking. So you admitted that they didn't know that
their ears off. Let's just, like I say, try not
so
to cut each other off.
You admitted that you were unaware of this. You admit, at the very least, even if it's not intentional, that it proves that these FBI crime statistics are fallible because they have to readjust. And now you're saying, but I quickly Googled and they said hate crimes are up and everything else is down. My question is then how much are hate crimes up? You're like, I don't know. I just read a headline.
Yeah,
I don't really understand that.
Numbers off
Again,
the top of my head.
I repeat, all of this is non-responsive to the flawed methodology that they stopped going after certain crimes. The fact that we can see the National Crime Victimization Survey continues to say things like, assaults of a sexual nature. I know we're not supposed to say the R word, but things like that, murders, etc., are still increasing. And it also doesn't really help your argument if those other types of crimes are going up. For example, many people are furious at property crimes. We can see that in places like Washington, D.C., where staffers used to work or still work for politicians, it used to be relatively safe. Now they're getting carjacked at record numbers. It's so much so that they're basically told, sorry, if you got carjacked. It's so expansive now, we can't even remotely begin to investigate this. Now, I just want to make one final point on this. We're hyper-focused on this one issue. Again, our opponents, including Classy, admitted he don't care if there's a recession. Trump's mean tweets and everything, or a depression, I'm sorry. He said Trump's mean tweets means he would vote for that any day. Our opponents are trying to hyperventilate on these minutia details to get away from the fact that the records of Donald Trump when it comes to the economy, when it comes to immigration, and when it comes to not being on the precipice of World War III, were superior. They have no answer to any of this.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you again.
For sure. Let's let Josh in.
If Biden had done a superb job over these last almost 4 years, you can rest assured that Kamala Harris would be intertwining herself with him and linking herself to him. But she's not doing that. And that's because Kamala Harris knows that everything's a disaster right now. And that's why she's trying to extricate herself and divorce herself and her brand and her name from Biden. So her doing that is an indictment on how bad the last 4 years have been under Biden. Don't ask me. Don't ask my esteemed colleague. Ask Kamala Harris. And she would tell you, I don't want anything to do with it. That's essentially what she's saying.
Rob Noor didn't actually answer my question. So even with the revised standards, let me ask you this. Is crime down?
From when? 2021? No. Crime's up.
Yes, it is.
Crime's up from 2020.
It is down.
So you're telling me the
it's
FBI
down, yes.
Real quick, I just want to get this clear. You're telling me that the revised FBI statistics, which you have access and you're looking at right now,
yes,
that the 2021 numbers, that 2023 is lower than 2021?
Yes.
You're wrong.
Are they including the crime of crossing our border illegally? Because there's about 10 more million you need to add to that.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and add that.
Oh, you don't care? That's not important
I'm telling you it's down. I'm pulling up violent crime. It's down. It's down.
Do those metrics and do those numbers include illegal crossings at our southern border?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm going to look up the FBI crime statistics.
Well,
but if you really want, like, honestly, at the end of the day, what I would probably argue in favor for is simple amnesty policies. So that way we actually know who's coming into the country and that we don't take advantage of illegal immigrants basically paying their Social Security taxes with a fake Social Security number and then not being able to collect FICA and all of the, not being able to collect their own Social Security or if they ever get hurt on the job. Right. We're talking about people that genuinely want to work. It's ridiculous, but that's beyond the point.
We got to hand the ball.
Crime's down.
We got to hand the ball. So back to Josh to wrap up your point or maybe clarify a little bit there.
And just to echo my colleague, I would say crime's down because, as he just said, the Democrats are decriminalizing everything. They decriminalize pouring into our border. They're decriminalizing they're not investigating carjackings, violent crimes in Chicago, right where I live, in my neighborhood. They have Kim Foxx there, the state's attorney, she's not going to investigate any of that. All of that is artificially depressing a lot of these crime numbers and bringing it down because they're not being investigated. And now there's the no cash bail thing. So they're doing that where they're just letting people go free until their trial. So again, if you're worried about crime and that's important to you, which I think it is to most folks, it is to me, I know my colleague, all the people out there, I think you should think long and hard before you vote for someone like Kamala Harris because she'll just keep decriminalizing things.
I don't know.
Can
I don't know
ask
what
you
to say,
something? Hold
but
on, sorry.
So
I
I
have
don't have any numbers to support
Everybody
that.
jump
I
in.
do.
We're going to hand the
So it must
floor.
be up.
We're going to hand the floor over to Classy.
Makes sense to me.
Either to put a bow on this one and put us in a different direction. Maybe we can focus back on the price of acquisition. But you go ahead there, Classy, and put it wherever you want it. The conversation.
So I think it's really interesting that you brought up like illegal border crossings. Let me ask you, did you support the border bill, the one that like Donald Trump actually like tried to shut down, that he called like so many Republican senators? It's like, and then it said, hey, you can blame it on me, that it didn't go through, and it would have actually helped the migrant crisis you guys keep crying about.
I can answer that, but I would real quick like to answer. So I will get the exact specific numbers, but looking at the FBI's graph that they put out, we can see that the crime they listed was actually around 1.19 million in 2021. That number is about 1.21 million in 2023. You have lied. You have directly lied. The numbers show, the actual revised FBI numbers show that crime increased from 2021 to 2022, and it's increased from 2021 to 2023 as well. You have lied. You have misled people. You claim that MAGA is not interested in truth, and people like me are not opening our ears and listening, and you are blatantly lying to the audience. I asked you specifically if you were saying that the numbers in 2023 were lower than 2021, and you repeatedly said yes. So one, the FBI statistics have been changed. Second, for the reasons I said, we should not look at that as the preferred metric because it only relies on crimes that police are trying to solve. Third, we can see that the National Crime Victimization Survey actually shows that these things are occurring more, including violent crime like murder. And fourth, you are directly lying to the people. Now, Classy, I could respond to you as well. No, I did not support the border bill that was brought forth by Democrats that gaslit us, or that Democrats say that we should have supported, by Democrats that gaslit us for 3.5 years and said the border was secure, as we saw record numbers of illegals coming, including those that were committing crimes and were possible terrorists, such as the person the FBI has just said planned on including a mass casualty event on Election Day in 2024. That bill was designed to do several things. First, it enshrined mass amnesty. Second, it only came into effect if 5,000 people or more a day were crossing the border, which is untenable. Third, it would have enshrined it in law, which meant even if Trump or Republicans won in 2024, they would have been beholden to this. Fourth, it would have funded the very NGOs that encourage these illegals to come here. Fifth, it didn't give any direct money to the border wall. And sixth, it gave millions upon millions of dollars in that very bill to things that were unrelated, such as money towards Ukraine, to keep that war going that is leading to the devastation of the Ukrainian people. So no, I did not support it. Instead, I supported the Republican bill that actually wouldn't have been interested in granting amnesty to the people that came here illegally, and would have actually been a border bill with teeth, which ICE preferred. And lastly, when you say that ICE said they wanted this border bill, yes, it's true. ICE said it was better than nothing because it was still giving them money. And these unions, like the border union, will always take more money. But if you go up to what the border union has further said, they specifically blame Kamala Harris and Joe Biden for the disaster at the border, saying that it's intentional, that they're hamstringing the Border Patrol intentionally, and they've endorsed Donald Trump.
Okay, so that was a lot there. Regarding the whole Ukraine thing, the bills were voted separately, and the bill for like aid to like Ukraine, Israel, passed anyway. So like I don't know why that is a talking point, because it passed anyway. But the border bill, the one that Trump really like had to call all these Republican senators to not to pass, that one didn't pass. I mean, this was a bipartisan bill that was co-written by Langford, Republican senator, not a Democrat, very conservative guy. And if you really cared about this issue, I think it should really scare you that Donald Trump, like specifically, did everything in his power to not get this passed, because it would be brought up during the election. And he's done this with many other issues. I mean, it was reported that like he spoke with Netanyahu to pressure him like not to accept a ceasefire deal, because that would also like help him at all.
We don't.
So he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the issue.
Can I just respond real quick to that? If you don't have to guess or surmise what Kamala really feels about the border, because when you ask her, she doesn't say yes, this is a very important issue. We need to tackle this right now. Anytime she has ever been asked on record about if the people that come into this country illegally, are they illegals? No, they're humans. I don't like that word. I wouldn't call them that. You just go straight to her. She makes it clear herself. She does not care. She does not consider it an issue. She doesn't think those people are criminals. We don't have to guess on this. Oh, is she going to do something about the border? She's not going to do anything about it because she doesn't think those people have done anything wrong. She's going to allow millions of people to keep leeching off of the state and other vulnerable communities that they live near. And it's a zero-sum game. It's taking resources away from already marginalized groups, especially in our inner cities and where I live. And she can't be bothered by it. She can't even be brought to condemn those people. That tells you all you need to know about how serious she is about fixing the border issue.
And to answer, if
All right,
you
but
would like me
crime's
to
still
answer.
down. And
If
that's
it-
what the revised statistics.
Crime is
I
not
pulled it
down.
up.
Crime is up
Yeah,
in
it is.
2023. So you're disputing the graph that I put up from the FBI. You're
It's
disputing.
literally down. I showed it for everybody to see. It's right there.
You-
Again,
you
they
did not
cut
bring
their
up the
ears
source.
off.
Bring
They
up
will
the
not
source.
hear it.
You're saying crime in general is down from
Literally,
2023 to
the
2021. Bring up the source.
CRJS.gov. It's the FBI Crime Data Explorer. I literally pulled it up.
Bring up the source.
It's
Let me
right
see it again.
there.
Let me see it again.
All right, here we go.
I just want to be clear. What
Go
you're
ahead. I
saying
want
is
you to
that
show, right?
you're-
I want you to tell me with a straight face, crime is up. Go
Let me
ahead.
read-
Tell
let me read what
Tell
you
me how
have.
Crime is
that
up
says that crime is down since what?
since
When's
last
that
year.
from? It's down 3% since when?
Last year.
Since last year. Was last
Yeah.
year 2021?
No.
So when I asked you from 2021,
You
has
think
crime
COVID
gone up?
might have something to do with
Wait.
2021 crime
Let me finish.
statistics?
Let me finish my question as you're trying to gaslight your audience.
This
When
is
I asked you
ridiculous.
specifically,
It's
when,
down.
When
I
I
need
asked
you
you,
to just
please
say
let
it's
me
down.
finish.
Right.
When
It's
I
down.
asked
We
you,
know it's down.
please let me finish. Notice how
Stop
he
cherry picking
filibusters.
data.
Notice
You
the
need
attempt-
to say
notice
that
how
it's
he's-
down. It's
Notice
down.
how he's
We know
filibustering.
All right,
it's
we're gonna
down.
give
Notice
Rob.
what's
We're gonna give
happening.
Rob 10 seconds just to put a bow on it, and
Stupid.
then
10
I'll hand it
seconds.
back.
A bow. Like he's
Well, if
blatantly
we
lying.
can't.
So he changed. I said crime's up since
It's
2021.
down.
I'm clearly
It's
not getting my 10
down. I
seconds as
showed
he's
it.
going back, James, to the filibuster tactling, which I said
It's
that he
not
would do.
filibustering.
So
I'm
I
holding
asked
your feet to the
specifically,
fire.
I'll just
It's
talk. I
down.
assure you I can talk over you and louder than you, faster than you,
I'm
more
sure you could.
intelligently than you. So
It's
if
down.
the moderator is not going to allow me to talk without you interrupting me, then I'll talk over
Well,
you.
I can
That's no
start. I
problem
can
on my
start.
part.
Employing those mutes if you're.
All
having
I'm asking
difficulty,
you
but-
is to just tell him, let me get my point out. So the point I was making, I asked specifically, are you
points out.
saying that crime is down from
Gish-gallop,
2021 according
crazy.
to the, he's again talking over me. I asked him specifically if crime was down from 2021 to 2023. He answered in the affirmative. Then he provides statistics that say that crime is down from 2022 to 2023.
Yeah,
I
but you're
gave
not
the
cherry-picking
actual data that
statistics.
showed that crime is up. My chart, and I've never disputed that from 2022 to 2023 that there was a slight decrease. That is true. What I said was from 2021, the FBI numbers showed that
down
it's
even
up.
from
He
2021.
lied to his audience. He lied to all of us as the
It's just
data
down
shows.
overall.
And then when then when it's pointed out, he then says, well, do you think COVID had something to do with it? Because he knows
That's
he's wrong.
correct.
Will you
'Cause crime
admit,
goes up
will
when
you,
people
I'll
all of a
answer
sudden
a
don't
simple
have
yes,
basic
no will
necessities
suffice.
met.
A
Yes.
simple yes, no will suffice, and you could then expound on it.
I
if you
just
want.
can't
Will you
stand the
admit,
lying.
Will you admit that crime is up in 2023 based on these numbers
I'm not
compared
going
to
to abide by
2021?
your cherry picking statistics.
It is.
Crime
All
is
right,
down.
we've definitely hit a wall there, fellas. There's no point to carry on with this back and forth as far as we've hit at this point. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, Josh. Maybe if you can try to hit this into some new territory that we haven't gone down into, that would be appreciated. Just because, like I said, it doesn't seem. I think as far as our audience is concerned, as far as everybody on the panel is concerned, we know where you guys differ on this one. So
It's fine. We could move on, but I just want to be clear. We're talking.
I think
that,
just to be fair, I think it's been made very clear. So Josh, I'm going to give you the
explain?
floor.
Go ahead, moderator. Can you explain what the difference is?
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
give Josh the floor.
Yeah, let him gish gallop the moderator too.
Go ahead, Josh.
I just want to ask everyone out there, is your life better now than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago?
Yes.
Is your auto insurance lower than it was?
No,
5,
everything's
6,
more
7
expensive.
years ago? Is your grocery bill higher than it was 6, 7 years ago? Do you see the country going in a direction you don't like?
No.
Do you think it's important that we have border security like other countries have?
Yes.
I'm not asking you again. I'm trying to talk to the people out there, and you just can't. You're so loquacious. You just can't help yourself from talking. You just can't stop. And it
sorry.
goes back to that analogy you had of self-mutilation, which makes sense because you're a leftist, of cutting the ears off, and you're exhibiting that
There
right
comes
now.
that transphobia.
You
Here comes.
keep your mouth shut and allow other people to talk. I understand that you people are afraid of the truth. You're afraid of a dialectic.
You are.
And you're afraid of an open conversation and dialogue. But you keep trying
dialogue.
to talk over people because you
just
don't.
don't like
All
transphobia.
right, 1 second. I don't want to place you on mute, but I have to, First Amender. I know you're having a lot of fun doing what you're doing, but you got to try to wheel it in a little bit here. I'm so sorry. So go ahead there, Josh.
Yeah, so folks, I don't even have to talk. I think you saw a great example of how the two sides are. You have one person that wants to shut down open discussion, who wants to yell and talk over somebody, and you have someone who just wants to engage in civil debate. Hey, these are important issues, and people want to, know what are you going to do about it? Let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialectic. And he just can't do it. For some reason, they just have to shut you down. They have to shout over you. And if they have to, they'll censor you. And we saw that under Biden. They'll censor what you say on social media. And so he is a great example of what they do writ large on the left, which is constantly trying to silence voices when we say, hey, I have a question, or hey, I want to talk about this. So I just want to finish my point. Ask yourself, are things better now than they were 5, 6, 7 years ago under Trump? Or if I put the two resumes of Harris and Trump side by side, who did a better job? Maybe the personality of this person isn't exactly what I wanted, but objectively judging these two resumes, these two CVs, who's done a better job? And if you do that, I think you will come to the conclusion that the only viable person you can vote for in this election between the two is Donald Trump.
All right, jump on in there, Classy. If you got some thoughts there.
Sure. So things are better now. As of September, the inflation is at 2.4%. Gas on average is $3.16 on Tuesday, which is really low. Actually, in some states it's even lower. Actually,
that inflation was still lower under Trump, but that's all right.
All right, let's let Classy continue.
But do you understand what caused the inflation, though? Like, we had a pandemic, we had a global crisis in the supply chain. Okay, if you're gonna say that Biden caused the inflation because of the American Rescue Act, let's not forget that Trump passed the CARE Act as well. You have to give stimulus packages because you need to stimulate the economy. If not, you're just going to go into depression. You said, I don't care if we go into depression or not. I do care. Okay, we had the CARE Act under Trump. We had the American Rescue Plan under Biden. This was necessary to continue the economy. And like I said, let's remember why Biden lost back in 2020. He had a terrible response to COVID-19.
So if I may, talking about gas prices specifically, you said gas was what, $3.16 an average, man?
$3.16 on Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, so the average in 2020 under Trump was $2.20. So we can see that gas prices have gone up on average about 30%. And $3.16 is actually down from what it's been under the Harris-Biden administration as a whole. So when you talk about inflation being 2.4%, that is a year-to-year metric. So let me explain sort of in a common parlance how this works. Let's say I was to tell you that the price of milk would double under 4 years of Harris-Biden. Now, if that price went 25% increase each year for 4 years, you would say year to year, inflation was up 25% in year 4. But if it went up 100% year 1 and then 0% for the next 3 years, you would say we've defeated inflation. Yet in both cases, the American people would be paying double what they were under the previous administration. What happened was the inflation numbers under Harris-Biden were so bad that they fell back down to sort of normal ways, but it's not 2.4 over what it was during Trump. It's 2.4 year over year. So we had horrible inflation numbers, sometimes year to year, according to the official data of being near 10%. And cumulatively, what we can see is Americans for many things are paying 30, 40, 50% more. In some cases, when it comes to things such as rents, such as mortgage percentages, etc., they have doubled and sometimes even more. They're paying 30% more over many staples that people need, such as basic necessities, such as milk, eggs, meat, things of that nature. Prices for certain things such as gasoline, crude oil, lumber, etc., have gone up at rates that are even higher than this. And the problem problem is those inflation things affect poor and working class people more than the wealthy, because even if you might buy more expensive food, if you're rich, you're still only using a very slight percentage of your overall worth. Whereas someone who's working class may spend as much as 30% for the necessities of groceries for their families. So if there is a large percentage increase of those sorts of things, it affects the poor and working class more, which is why we've seen under Harris Biden, it is true that there have been some people that have been doing very well, and that tends to be the extremely wealthy, which may make sense as why you see that the Democratic Party, and particularly Harris, is the party of the extremely rich right now. Most incredibly wealthy donors are supporting Kamala Harris.
Eventually. So I'm sorry. There's a lot that you're throwing out there. I'm so sorry, Rob. So I don't want to cut you off, but I have to. So
no, that's perfectly reasonable. Yep.
Do you want to jump in here, or First Amender?
Party of the extremely rich. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is literally endorsing Donald Trump. Bro, what? Listen to yourself. Do you not hear yourself? You are so deep.
You've cited one person.
Crazy.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, but it's not just one person, right? Like most Republicans are wealthier. Like that's in fact the case. Like, haven't you heard people who are older tend to be Republican? Yeah, it's also true that people who are older tend to have a higher net worth. So yes, the Republican Party tends to be the party for the rich. Do you know who's been arguing in favor of unions? Kamala Harris. Do you know who's been arguing for like trying to build up the middle class? Kamala Harris. Like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. It's not like you saying that the Democrats is the party for the rich. You are so far up your own like logic.
I would just like to jump in if I can. Kamala Harris can say she's, the person for these people, but let's look at reality. Are her and Biden's policies leading to a better country for middle and lower income people? And if you objectively look at it, no, it's much harder to be a middle working class person under Biden Harris than it was under Donald Trump. And so she can use whatever lofty rhetoric she wants. That doesn't make it true. And the Democrats have this problem where they wish something were a certain way, or they say it and they think it makes that thing a fact or a reality, and it just doesn't. So I don't care about Kamala Harris's rhetoric. I don't care about Trump's rhetoric. I care about results and what they've got done. And if you put the two resumes side by side, it's clear that
Trump left a giant disaster.
Donald Trump ran a much better ship than Kamala Harris and Biden.
It was a disaster when he left
from
because
Obama,
of COVID.
Then he ruined it under COVID-19.
It's not true. So first off,
that is true. He left with like tons of unemployment.
That's not true. So if
you
allow me,
that's 100% true.
And so if you allow me to articulate first off, we can see the donation numbers show that it is stark that the donations that come from the wealthiest American or from wealthy Americans are disproportionately in favor of Harris and the Democratic Party. Of course, we would be able to say that there are outliers to that, and there are going to be specific wealthy people that would favor the Republicans and Donald Trump. Of course, that's true. That would be like if you said the majority of Black Americans are donating to the Democratic Party, and I say, but my neighbor's Black and he donated to the Republican Party. That doesn't disprove the claim that you met. And you're saying, do you hear yourself, because you're talking about a few outliers. The data doesn't lie. It shows that. Second, when it comes to the economy, we can see that Trump's economy was outperforming Obama's economy. And it is true that there was a pandemic, and there is criticism to be levied at Trump and the Republican parties for the handling of the pandemic. But that pandemic was something that was historic. Notice how Classy Neurotic already earlier said as an excuse to some of the failures of the Harris-Biden, but they were dealing with COVID. Why does Trump not get that grace where this catastrophe occurred and we say, see, that caused the collapse, therefore it's all on Trump's shoulders?
Let's ask them that question if we can pass it back.
But the difference is that Donald Trump, you're the one that is blaming Biden for what happened with inflation. But when we're showing, hey, COVID caused unemployment to go up, you don't blame Donald Trump. I can easily tell you none of that is Biden or Trump's fault. They can only deal with the cards that they're left with. And I don't believe it's either Trump or Biden's fault for inflation, but you do. You don't place any blame on Trump, but you place all the blame on Biden.
What has Kamala Harris done for America that you love?
What? She was VP. She did nothing. She couldn't do anything. She's a VP. VPs don't make policy
He had a
decisions.
long
They could suggest
recorded, on
things,
the
but
record
ultimately the
work
decision
experience.
maker is going to be Biden.
I think-
That's how it is.
Let's let Josh clarify his question there.
She has a long track record of public life, dating back into California as Attorney General, as a state's attorney. What has she done, or what policy positions has she advocated for that make you think she needs to be the next president of the United States?
Huh? Well, when I hear her talk and make policy positions of what she's going to do in the future, I like it a lot better than the weird dictator
talking
orange.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's objectively
Done.
better. It's let me tell you why. So, like,
There's
she
also
has
numerous
advocated
economists
for
that show it's
actual
gonna be a better
policies,
economy.
though, that
Okay,
she wants
let's
to
let you
forgive
answer.
medical debt
Sorry.
for the American population. And when they asked Trump during the debate, what's his plan for healthcare, he says he has concepts of a plan.
That's not true.
Why
What
do you
he
want to
said
be
was-
president?
That's
Please,
not true. That never happened. Guys, he
it-
never
it-
said that. Guys,
Please,
ooh.
again, I get the theatrics. It goes well with the poetry.
Nice
That's not what
gaslighting.
happened. What was asked was he articulated specifically that he would not overrule Obamacare. And when asked what he would do to do that eventually, he said they have concepts of a plan, but he said he would not upset the status quo of Obamacare unless they had a better plan, which they're formulating concepts of. Compare that to Kamala Harris's answer on the town hall the other day when she said she can't be asked to give specific policy prescriptions because she needs to research it. She's been there for 4 years. The idea that, well, she was VP and therefore she couldn't do things is belied by her own words and Joe Biden's. Biden said she was integral to almost every one of his policies and was the last person in the room. We know that Biden has cognitive issues, which means that someone else was making these plans. And Kamala Harris has admitted, despite the fact that her party has said she's the person of change, that there's not one thing she could think of that she would have done different than Biden. She's promising to be the candidate of change and do all of these new policies. And yet her and the people that run her candidacy did none of those things when they were there for 4 years and gaslit people that there weren't problems that were significant with the economy, immigration, foreign policy, etc. I could continue if you all don't
So
have
he
anything
did, so
to
he
say.
did say it then.
What's that?
He did say it. That he had
He said-
concepts of a plan.
He said that the plan he's articulating for is the status quo. And if he was to change it, they have concepts if they had something that was
So
better
you think
that
that
they
he
would need to change.
argues in
That's
favor
not
of
a plan.
Obamacare? That's the status quo. Are you
That is
gonna say-
exactly what
He's
he
gonna
said. He
stick
was
with
asked
Obama?
Wait, but he
when he
ran
wants to
on.
abolish
But back in
Obamacare, you're so
2016,
cringe,
he
dude.
ran
What?
on repeal and replace, and he only got rid of the individual mandate.
That's correct.
He never got this bigger and better healthcare plan that he promised.
That's absolutely true. You're right. One of the most ridiculous things that's, unlike you all, I will actually criticize Trump and Republicans. Yes, Republicans for years had said that they were going to run on repealing and placing Obamacare, and they were full of it. When they had the opportunity to do so, they didn't. Now, Trump at least got the individual mandate repealed, but we see from his track record and from his updated position that, yes, he is saying he didn't remove the entirety of Obamacare in 2016 through 2020, and he wouldn't do so now unless they had a concrete plan that they would formulate that would be something that was better. Now, compare that to Kamala Harris. I'm glad that you're saying we must go back to 2016 and see what Trump ran on. Would you also agree that we must see what Kamala ran on in 2020?
No.
Why not?
So, because
Why
I
do
don't
you,
think
why,
it's relevant.
just
though.
if you don't mind, why would you say that it's relevant to go back to what Trump said in 2016?
Because he was
even though we
president
saw-
during those 4 years.
Okay, so we saw how he governed and he didn't do those things. So why shouldn't we look at what
But
Kamala
he
said
did.
she would
He
do in
incited the
2020?
insurrection. What do you mean? He did
What does that have to
exactly
do
what
with
he said he would
Obamacare?
do.
What does that have to do with Obamacare?
And
Yeah,
my
going
colleague
over
predicted that
Obamacare, he
you would
also
just keep
argued for
bringing up the
abolishing
insurrection.
Obamacare. He consistently did that.
Again,
so you saying that he wants to keep the status quo, guys?
That's
no,
what
he
he
doesn't.
said.
He
That's what he-
literally tried executive order after executive order to abolish the Obamacare system. He would continuously call it the Obamacare system and not what it's actually called, which is the Affordable Care Act. The reason why is because he wanted to demonize Obama and he wanted to demonize the system, even though it got millions of people affordable health care.
Well,
But
I think Trump is allowed to flip flop on maybe one thing because Kamala Harris is the apotheosis of a flip flopper. I
He's
mean,
gonna
she's
mention
terrible.
fracking. Yeah, I know. It's gonna
He's
make me
terrible.
crazy.
Hey, what
Make
about
up
this
her
other thing
mind.
that I wasn't talking about?
I mean,
He
you
can't-
literally just went to a whataboutism of inciting insurrection while we were talking
What?
about Obamacare.
Yeah, because you said, oh, he didn't do any of these things, but he did.
What are you talking about? I asked you,
did
did
do
he
those
repeal
things.
Obamacare? I said he didn't do these
he
things.
He tried
I said
multiple times,
specifically
and
he
it
didn't repeal
failed.
Obamacare. You talked about January 6th. Again, I would like to ask Classy, since he seems to at least be interested in a back and forth, which I appreciate, Classy. Why is it that we should look at what Trump ran on in 2016, despite the fact that didn't occur in the 4 years of his governance, but we shouldn't look at the promises of Kamala Harris from 2020, which is 4 years more recent? You said, no, we shouldn't look at what she promised there. Can you explain why we should look at Trump's claims in 2016, but not Kamala's in 2020?
Yeah, because I answered it already. He was president for 4 years and Harris wasn't.
So that would seem to mean that we should look at Trump's record because he was president, right? Not what he ran on necessarily. So if he didn't successfully remove Obamacare in 2016 through 2020, and he's running on not attempting to remove Obamacare unless they formulate a plan that would be better for Americans, why should we say that he's going to remove Obamacare? Whereas Kamala, who ran on these things, real quick, Kamala, who ran on these things in 2020, and you're correct, wasn't president, means that she would have a chance to do these things now if she does become president. So why shouldn't we look at what she claimed she wanted to do in 2020?
Because over time, you're going to have to change your positions. I mean, it's normal for people to over time to change their positions to more moderate positions so they can appeal to a much wider audience. Plus, sometimes, once you're actually in power, or in her case, close to power, you realize that certain things just aren't feasible. You're not going to be able to ban fracking. That's just not going to happen.
She also wrote about this in the book, right? She talked about this in her book during the 2020 presidential run. What?
That she plagiarized that book?
No, she wrote it. Anyway, so I don't know, it's kind of weird. So talking about her book, she was arguing over what was happening in 2020 and made the comment about, say, for example, abolishing ICE because, and she changed her mind. But really what she was doing was in reaction to what was currently happening, where they were literally physically separating children from their parents and putting them in separate cages. And so they actually showed this to be the case. And then they were like, okay, well, why is this happening? It was so bad that they actually had to do state sanctioned DNA tests because they couldn't figure out whose parent went to what kid. It was that bad. And so I could totally understand her position where she's like, oh, we need to abolish ICE during that moment. But obviously that's not feasible. And now here she is running as president. And so it's like, okay, you actually have to have feasible policies. So yes, it makes sense to change your position. Honestly, if Donald Trump changed his position, I wouldn't hold that against him. That's not a bad thing to grow and learn more.
Obamacare.
And then now that you know more, you change your mind.
You just did. You said he supports Obamacare and he didn't before, so you would judge him.
No, that's not what I said. That's what your interlocutor said, Josh. Robb Noor just said that he supported it, but then he didn't support it. The reality is that he never supported it. He said that he wanted to argue the status quo. However, the status quo is in fact the Affordable Care Act. So he's sitting there saying he wants to have the status quo, which is the Affordable Care Act, yet the antithesis seems to be the case. He held executive order after executive order to end Obamacare. And guess what? He's going to keep trying to do that because he doesn't like it. And he's going to replace it with the concepts of a plan. What an amazing dude.
So again, we talked about this specifically, right? And what you can see is you literally just proved Josh's point that he made to you, that he governed in 2016 to 2021 way. You said you wouldn't hold it against him if he changed his mind. You then say he said he's for the status quo. And then you say, but that can't be true.
That's
because
what
in 2016,
you said, Rob.
that is not what I
Trump.
said. I said specifically.
Trump has been consistent the entire time.
I don't know what to say. You're having trouble following the conversation. What I said was, he said that he's advocating for the status quo. You said, please. We're trying to be quiet.
Let's just let Rob clarify, what his question was earlier and his thoughts earlier, and then we'll let you respond.
It's becoming difficult because oftentimes we're making points here and you're making claims, and then we go based.
All right,
again,
we're going to get pulled into a meta. Let's just go back into the argument if you don't mind.
Right. And so just like the argument before was 2020 crime stats 2023, what I said here was, he said that he would defend the status quo. And Josh said, no, that can't be the case because of actions he took from 2016 to 2020. Then he later says, I wouldn't hold it against Trump if he changed his mind, which is exactly what he's doing. He's just saying Rob said it. But I would like to reference some of these things on the border. First off, when talking about kids being separated at the border, it was Obama that initially had these kids put in cages. The cages were built under him. Democrats didn't seem to care. In fact, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris said it was a human rights abuse for kids to be in cage. And quite promptly, when they came into office, we saw 6 times more kids in cage under them than we saw under Trump. In addition to that, we can see that ICE is admitting now that they've lost 300,000 children under the Harris-Biden administration because of their open border policies.
No, that's not true. That's not what happened, though. No, because you're yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're misrepresenting what they said. What they said it was like 291,000 didn't show up to court dates. You're misrepresenting that. I know the article you're talking about.
Do they know where those kids are currently?
They just said they didn't show up to the court date. That's it. Like,
so would you agree this?
Sponsors.
Would you agree this is sort of how the process goes? Some of these children are sent to sponsors, etc., and then they're told you have to show up to court. And we agree the reasons for that would be very important. You want to make sure these kids are going to environments where they're taken care of. Correct?
Doesn't mean that they're missing.
No, but I'm saying that's the reason. That's the reason that ICE needs to keep track of these children to make sure they're going to, because we know that ICE has admitted that some of these kids are sexually trafficked. So we want to make sure that these kids are safe, correct?
But I think you're misrepresenting what it said. It didn't say that they were lost or that they were missing. It said that they didn't show up to the court dates.
I feel like you're not answering the question, and you're sort of going.
I am answering the question. No, you're misrepresenting what happened.
No, so will you?
Because your premise is
wrong. You just okay? So will you admit yes?
What they said. Just let's let Classy explain what's going on over there. As I mean, admittedly, Rob and First Amendment, you guys have had quite a bit of floor time. So
apologies.
Go ahead. No, it's okay. Like I said, these are just natural things that happen in these conversations. Go ahead there, Classy.
Okay, so we're talking about the Department of Homeland Security, right? So they had a report that said 21,000 unaccompanied migrant children had not, as of May 2024, received a notice to appear in court. Additionally, more than 32,000 unaccompanied migrant children got a notice to appear, but then failed to show up for the immigration hearing case. But this is not the same thing to say that they are lost or missing. It's not an issue that these people are missing. It's an issue of just not having the proper paperwork, which I think that's maybe like worth criticizing, sure. But like you're making this into some weird like human trafficking thing, which is just like plainly false.
So I'll answer.
It's a JD Vance talking point.
I'll answer in the affirmative. I think Classy what it meant that we want DHS, ICE, etc., to be looking into these children because we know that they could be trafficking. And then the next step of that is, well, how will they do that? And they have to be able to monitor these children, and they have to show up to the appropriate hearings and such. You're admitting that 290,000 something haven't showed up to the hearing that have been scheduled to show up. That's what the data says. Now there's just a quibble for, are they lost? Well, I guess it's how you define lost. Would you admit this at least, that DHS doesn't know where those children are?
This would be the
It
last
doesn't say that they don't know where the children are. It just says they didn't show up to the court date.
But how would they know where they were if they're not meeting the appropriate benchmarks, such as court dates that they were coming to? Are they visiting them at the homes? Can you explain to me what's happened if they know where they are?
Sorry. I don't have a response.
I love how he's like asking like these hyper specific statistics that there's no way you could possibly remember all of these very, very specific statistics. Yet when brought up the basic statistic as to whether or not crime fell, he still thinks that it went up, even though it went down.
All right, well, we came full circle, so I think this might be a good time to go into that Q&A there, guys, because we do have a lot of questions that have poured in, and I don't know about you, but you might also have some pouring to do yourself, whether you want to get yourself a beverage or use the washroom. Maybe take a moment there to our speakers, and thank you so much for being here. You guys aren't budging, so I mean, speak now or forever hold your pee. That's how it goes over here. We are going to go into Q&A, so thanks again to all of our speakers for the lively discussion. I do my best to try to stay as far out of it as I can, but sometimes, people want a little space, and, I do what I can to be as good as I can.
I thought you did great.
Oh, thank you so much. I
enjoyed it.
This has been a lot of fun.
I think it's been really fun, and thank you for hosting this. I really appreciate you taking the time to host this. And it got a little spicy. I probably should have gotten some milk, because how spicy the debate got.
We should do a combination with that show Hot Ones and eat wings while we're
Yeah.
It'll be all right.
Oh man, no, I can't. No, I had like a tiny bit of wasabi on my sushi the other day, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta use this when I go out singing. Like
Yeah, it'll clear you up.
it cleared me out. It did. Just in here, up here, everybody. Don't get any crazy visuals. So yeah, let's jump to that Q&A. Thanks everybody who's already put in a question. We're gonna jump right into those questions. And I was just projecting, guys. It's actually me that needs to have a step out. So who's Rich Purnell has a question for both parties. If Trump/Harris were not on the table, I will stick around for this one because this will be quick, I think, potentially. Who would you choose? So, yeah, let's start with you, Rob. Who would you choose if Trump and Harris were not on the table?
Trump was my third choice for the Republican primary. I preferred Vivek Ramaswamy or Ron DeSantis over him, so I would pick either of those two. JD Vance would also be a tremendous option.
All right, you got some thoughts over there, Josh? You're nodding your head. You might
Yeah. I really like Vivek. Coming as a person of color that immigrated to this country, I think he brings a very unique background and a unique perspective on things. And I really like kind of his laissez-faire, libertarian, moral ethic that he kind of brings to everything he does. And that's where I tend to lean more politically. I'm a libertarian. I'm all about live and let live. As long as I'm not,
right?
Unless they're transgender.
well, and he didn't let me finish. So can I finish?
Yes, go for it. That's fine.
I mean, they interrupt constantly. It's kind of hard to say anything.
Well, I'm glad you're all having fun, but go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
Unless what they're doing impinges upon someone else's right, such as a woman's right to be in a woman's locker room without a man there. And so I really like Vivek Ramaswamy, and I also do like some of the things Ron DeSantis has said. There are some things I disagree with him on.
All right. Hopefully that gave you a chance to think about somebody, because you were kind of at your chin for a second there. First Amender, who else would you prefer to see on the ticket?
David Pakman. There. David Pakman would be great. I like him. He's good. He's smart. He's not a moron. Yeah, I like people who aren't dumb. Like,
I can't do a David Pakman impression. I'm so sorry, Pakman. I can't. I don't know how I would. But go ahead there, classy, neurotic. Who would you prefer to vote for or have on the ticket?
I'm fine with the ticket. I mean, it's fine. I think Harris is a good choice. I think she has a really good record as vice president. I know you guys like to talk about that, like, oh, why did she do this as vice president? When her role is either as a stand-in for president or being the tiebreaker because she's the president. And she actually has a record in being the tiebreaker, beating John C. Calhoun, actually. I thought that was really interesting when I was researching for this debate, actually. And like one of those votes was actually the Inflation Reduction Act.
All right.
I don't know. If you wanted to give a meme answer, maybe Steve Bonnell II would have been cool.
All right, let's carry into the next question there.
In Destiny. Wow, that's banger for modern day debate. Who do you want to see as president, Destiny or David Pakman?
David Pakman.
It's just a fun question. Relax.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. It's all good. Kriegstyle says, for all, when choosing between incompetence and corruption, what side do you choose? Those are our choices. We give up freedom on both sides. Why argue so vehemently for the lesser of two evils? Actually, just get into our live audience. First Amender sending out love to somebody. Thank you. Anyways, let's get into our votes.
I'm just super pro-trans. I love trans people. They're great.
I'm sorry, I'm colorblind. I'm not sure. But anyways, modern day debate poll. If you guys have not voted already, right now we've got 401 votes. 45% are for Trump. That is the lead right now. 40%, 5% below that at Harris, and a whole lot of no one. I'm watching, eating popcorn and watching the dumpster fire. So that's 15%. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a new poll in our chat, one that's a little bit more broader, because I know some of the people that are in the chat just can't vote, so they're being pedantic. So I'll just say, who would you rather see U.S. president? So I'll close that in a second, guys. Trudeck says, you did a great job, Amender. So they're sending out their love back to you. That's
thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Trudeck or Trudeck. Maybe that's somebody that you know, but yeah, we always appreciate that. It's always nice. Chase Hatchet says, Trump is literally jealous of Hitler and wishes he had his generals. How do you defend that?
Well, I'm Jewish, so to me, this anecdotal stuff that the left keeps bringing up, they're experts at twisting words and making things sound nefarious when they're not. I'm Jewish. These anecdotal things about Trump saying something that could be interpreted a certain way, I don't care. I want somebody that's going to run the country and run it right. And when you put their two resumes next to each other, Trump is by leaps and bounds ahead of Kamala Harris. And I could not care less if he made a comment about Hitler. It doesn't bother me.
It's a good thing you're not trans, right?
So I don't know what that comment was about, but also the problem with this, the problem with the question is, it assumes that we know this statement to be truth. We do not. So think what you would have to know about this. First, you have to believe some anonymous people that haven't given their name to this story. Surprise, surprise, like every time Trump runs, or even Republicans, you can go back before Trump. Remember the binders full of women, all of the things that were said about Mitt Romney, who I have no love for. And there were similar things that were said, accusations going back for Republicans and even at some point Democrats, these October surprises that aren't sourced. Now we could take former Chief of Staff John Kelly specifically, who claims that Trump said things about this. Well, first off, Mike Pence, Chief of Staff that was in the room with him most of the time, said this is all garbage. It never happened. And second, what you would be forced to believe is that John Kelly, who left in 2018, felt so obliged to go to Jonah Goldberg at the Atlantic in 2020 to say, oh, and trust me, Trump said that soldiers that died were suckers and losers. And he felt so strongly about stopping another Trump presidency that he needed to say that. But he did not say, oh, and by the way, he praised Hitler all the time. Instead, he waited 4 more years, and then it just immediately crossed his mind 2 weeks before an election. Oh, and remember, guys, he said Hitler was good. The story reeks of just blatant desperation, and it's another one of these accusations against Trump that there's no proof of, no one else heard it, but trust this one dude, bro. Trump says he likes Hitler, even though he did more for Israel by leaps and bounds than either Obama or Harris Biden.
All right, I have a feeling there's going to be some response on the other side, so if you would like to respond, we can have that and let Josh and Rob have the last word. So, Classy or First Amender, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, like, I don't know. I just feel like my interlocutor is just like a gish-galloping king, and it's like insane that he can't stick on one point. And like even on like having to like hold his feet to the fire for an extended 20-30 minutes, he couldn't answer the question, and only until way later he could finally barely eke out an answer, which is crazy to me.
All right, did you have any thoughts, Classy, before we give Rob and Josh the last word? Or
no? Yeah, okay. Just to anyone that's like watching this at home that lives in the United States and that's able to register to vote, depending on where you state and where you live, if it's already past the deadline to vote, obviously you can't do anything. But if you're already registered, please vote. Do early voting, vote if possible. But yeah, please vote. All right. This election's very important.
We'll get back to our question, though.
Can I just say, Rob? Classy, I think Classy misunderstood. That wasn't like final statements. You meant anything to say on that specific question, correct, James?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought we were ending.
Yeah, I get your confusion.
No, we have quite a few questions left. Sorry, Classy. I'm
sorry. No worries. I'll say I'm good.
I was gonna say if you're in a hurry to leave or anything like that, I can rush them along. No worries.
I'm good.
Okay, I did kind of steamroll over this one. We kind of forgot about it because we checked out the poll, and I think Josh and Rob were pretty happy that they were winning in the poll there. So I'm going to close that one out, and we're going to start up a new one. But Kruxal had asked, for all, when choosing between incompetence and corruption, what side do you choose? Those are our choices. We give up our freedom on both sides. Why argue so vehemently for the lesser of two evils? So, let's start over with you, First Amender. So they're coming at you. Why do you argue for the lesser of two evils? And
I mean, I don't perceive it that way, but I mean, if you wanted me to work within your framework, I suppose I would say that like I would rather not the corrupt psychopath is probably my move. I mean, that's just me. At least then we'll have I can guarantee that we'll still have an America 40 years later, but I can't guarantee that for the corrupt guy. That's my issue.
All right, we'll ask you the same question there, Rob. Why are you so vehemently for the lesser of two evils when choosing between incompetence and corruption?
Well, again, I disagree with the premise of the question. I do not feel that Trump is either incompetent or corrupt. I think that metric goes to the establishment, and particularly Kamala Harris, who is both incompetent and incorrupt de facto because she's so incompetent that it's people running the show behind her. When you talk about whether or not we'll have a country in the next 4 years, remember, this is the exact rhetoric we heard from 2016 to 2020, which didn't result in any of the bad things. The record speaks for itself as we were able to articulate throughout this entire debate. What I will say is platforms like Modern Day Debates and even the channels that you see like Classy Neurotic, if he has one, or First Amendment, Josh, who's been on things like with Alex Stein and, other debate channels, even people like David Pakman and Steve Bennell that was brought up, that all relies on protecting the First Amendment. And we can see a full-throated push by the establishment, including former Secretary of State such as John Kerry and Hillary Clinton, saying we need to reject the First Amendment. And we see proof that they've gone after what they call disinformation. And what do they mean by disinformation? Well, what the Harris-Biden administration means is anything that goes against the narrative they want to push. The biggest purveyors of disinformation have been mainstream media outlets that push disinformation on COVID, disinformation on the Russia collusion hoax, and will continue to say any uncited garbage, such as Trump said he likes Hitler and generals, or Brett Kavanaugh was someone who was doing some very heinous things. So, yeah, if you like modern day debates and if you like the ability to speak, it's actually the Democrats and Kamala that are more corrupt and want to stymie that.
All right, well, we do appreciate free speech over here at Modern Day Debate, and we do offer everybody a chance to make their case here at Modern Day Debate. Thanks for the kind words for the platform there, Rob. And Classy Neurotic, same question. Why argue so vehemently for the lesser of two evils when choosing between incompetence and corruption?
Can I just say that Trump is both incompetent and corrupt? I mean, we have a whole indictment about it. I highly recommend people read the 165-page Jack Smith indictment. I know Trump's lawyers are really scared of the facts, but and yeah, the Mueller report is also really interesting though. Look,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
We're not gonna agree with everything. I actually feel like I'm more in line with someone. I would prefer someone who wasn't as progressive as Harris. I would have preferred someone who's maybe a little bit more moderate, and there are things about just her policies I disagree with, but at the end of the day, I'm confident that under Harris we would still have a democracy, that she would respect the peaceful transfer of power. But when it comes to Trump, I don't think he will. And yeah, I don't know, it's going to be interesting what we're going to see.
All right, Josh, close us out on this one. Why are you so vehemently for the lesser of two evils?
Yeah, again, echoing everyone else, I'd reject the premise of that, but assuming arguendo that's the case. With Kamala, like my colleague said, her incompetence lends itself to corruption because she's nothing but an empty suit. This kind of ossified system that's been in place in DC with lobbyists can continue on. The border can go unchecked. Her incompetence is leading to corruption and destruction, and that includes destruction of free speech. I am a libertarian, as I said before, and so I value free speech, free expression, our First Amendment. And it really is Orwellian, and it scares me how we now have this whole disinformation narrative that is giving the government carte blanche to shut down and censor any speech that they think is disinformation. Now, lots of the time, as we've seen it borne out, those things that were labeled conspiracy theories or disinformation ended up being factual, but they were censored and those people were punished for it. This reeks and smacks of an authoritarian state. I don't like it. I will always fight for free speech. And that's why I feel like I am forced to vote for Trump, because at least a dialogue and a dialectic will be allowed, and we won't keep going down this road of censoring people that have views that go against the official narrative.
All
But
right.
Trump is not an authoritarian, right? Just
What did he do that was so authoritarian when he was in office from 2016 to 2020?
He closed down Lafayette Square just so he can have this really dumb photo shoot quoting the Bible. No one's ever done that before. And he's also talked about
all sorts of
mobilizing the National
authoritarian
Guard
crap.
to go down under radical left lunatics. Doesn't really seem like a free speech guy.
Okay, can I respond to that real quick? So you're talking about May 31st, 2020, when he went to St. John's Church and read the Bible? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, the internal report showed that first, he had no part of that decision of what the Secret Service did. And secondly, wasn't that immediately after the left-wing insurrection that used Molotov cocktails to burn down federal buildings, to attack the White House, so much so that the Secret Service had to move Trump to a bunker, which Biden then later joked about and told Trump to go back to his bunker? Why are you okay with that insurrection?
Man, he's the king of gish-gallops.
It's not insurrection, though.
Why isn't it? They attacked the White House in an attempt to get to Donald Trump, that he was under threat to the point Secret Service had to move him to a bunker. Then you literally the next day when Secret Service tried to protect him, you say that's authoritarian. Did you also think it was authoritarian when the National Guard set up after January 6th? Or when the New York governor sent the National Guard to subways in New York? Did you consider that authoritarian?
So regarding the whole Lafayette Square situation, though, the Secret Service, yeah, I mean, it was pretty bad. It was pretty violent. I don't support, riots, but this is just not even like anything close to like what happened on January 6th. They put down like a temporary barrier. And like, what did they have plans? Did Biden tell them that, like, hey, we need to like kidnap Trump and like force him to like, I don't know, like
many of the people, many of the people in the crowd on May 30th were saying that they wanted to harm Donald Trump. Unlike January 6th, they actually set fire to
January
governmental.
6th peaceful?
Please let me finish. They actually set fire to a governmental building, and we actually saw the leader of the Democratic Party, the de facto leader Joe Biden, mock Trump for that. Trump, to my knowledge, never mocked the people, like the Congress people, etc., that were fearful.
Well, he said, so what, when learning that people were going to say like hang Mike Pence. So like he doesn't even care about his own people. I don't know what you would bring. So
first up, it's innuendo that he said so what. Second, those people clearly weren't going to hang Mike Pence. We had an entire summer.
But they literally brought out the guillotines. What are you talking about? We have footage.
They didn't have the guillotine. They had a gallows. That gallows was literally made with basically.
I'm sorry.
Let me finish. That gallows clearly was incapable of literally hanging a person. It literally had like that cheap nylon rope that you get that wouldn't be able to hold an adult human. And actually, you could see that an adult human wouldn't have been able to fit underneath that gallows. It was a prop, just like we saw things in effigy of Trump being killed over and over and over again with the left. We actually saw violence on the left that was supported more so by. Let me ask you this: if Trump would have pushed a bail fund for the people on January 6th,
the Minnesota Freedom Fund? Come on, no, I'm not going to answer.
Guys, was it peaceful? Yes. Was it peaceful?
No, there was definitely violence on January 6th. I'm willing to condemn violence.
Yeah, no crap, it wasn't peaceful.
All right, nobody,
but I'm not. Was May 30th peaceful?
Nobody can see your full screen. If you want to do a share screen, we can't see quite everything you're sharing.
No, you're good. You're good. I just wanted to label the
real
fact
quick.
that it was in fact a violent insurrection. For sure, it was like the footage is all there. Like
I answered First Amendment's question.
There's people who are like pro facts, and then there are people who are like anti facts who wants to sit there and pretend that it wasn't an authoritarian.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. He asked a question specifically, was it peaceful? I said, no, there was violence. And then he says, oh, he won't say there's violence. He's just going off on a speech. I asked you a question. Was May 30th the insurrection against Trump that sought to get into the White House using Molotov cocktails, forcing Trump to be removed to a bunker? Was that peaceful?
May 30th?
May 30th,
I'm not aware of that.
Right, you're not. Don't you think that's interesting? When Trump's life was threatened by left-wing mobs, the media didn't deign to report on it.
I'm against that as well. No Democrat is going to be in favor of killing Donald Trump.
Then why didn't the Democrats demand an investigation? And why did Joe Biden mock Donald Trump for having to be moved to a bunker?
I guarantee you, if there was an attempt at Donald Trump's life, if you think that there is no investigation, that would be crazy. I would be amazed to see that. I have a feeling that that's not the case. By the way, just a side note there, Josh, you called yourself a libertarian. I used to be a libertarian. I got news for you. If you are anti-trans, you are not a libertarian.
All right, Josh.
Well, I am. I'm for women.
You're not a libertarian.
Well, I am. I'm for women.
No, you're not. Trust me, you're not.
Can I talk? I'm for women being able to be in places unbothered and unmolested by biological men, where men aren't trying to invade their spaces, where they're not being erased by biological men.
This is women?
Very basic science.
And the fact women molesting women?
Constantly trying to talk over me, and I think you're just coming off horribly to everyone watching. It's obvious you're very infantile and puerile, not only in your
I will agree that it does seem
lack thereof, but just in your ability to have a civil discussion. You talk and you monopolize the time, and when someone just tries to even answer your question, you constantly interrupt and try to talk over them. So I believe that my belief in libertarianism is congruent with my belief that biological men should not be invading women's spaces. In fact, I believe that's a prerequisite to my libertarianism. You cannot have libertarianism or freedom of choice if women are having their consent overridden by biological men. So yes, I do believe that biological men should not be in female spaces. We should respect females and women's consent.
I will just jump in just because
libertarianism.
We could go down a whole other sphere here, and that's totally fine. We've got no problem exploring.
I just wanted to answer his question. He asked the question I've been talking about 8% of this entire time. So I wanted to dedicate, 1 minute to respond to his question.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. And I definitely want to say that, if this is something that you guys want to revisit and focus on for another...
He asked the question. He keeps asking it. I just thought I'd answer it, and I think I did.
Yeah, so I am saying that, yeah, we can revisit this at a later date with you guys, and let's try to,
He's obsessed with it, not me.
Yeah, let's try to focus on what we got here at hand. So no worries there, Josh. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying here. And if you want to have any more time on the floor, that's totally fine as well. Like I said, I want to be fair. But yes, I have a new poll up. It's Trump or Harris. Pretty straightforward. We got 61% voted for Trump. It's 39% for Harris so far. So let us know what you think personally right now. And... let's get into the next question, and thank you again to our panel. Nominal says, men's for Kamala. Why did 51 former intelligence officials sign a letter that the laptop was Russian disinformation? It doesn't seem trustworthy, in my opinion.
That's for classy and First Amendment, I believe.
Yes. So they're saying for the Kamala side, why did 51 former intelligence officials sign a letter that the laptop was Russian disinformation? It doesn't seem trustworthy.
I don't know off the top of my head. I would have to research that information. I don't know.
But they were wrong. They were wrong, and it wasn't disinformation.
I don't know. I don't know what the information.
No, we know it wasn't disinformation.
I look at the facts. I don't look at like this weird partisan argument, right?
If I may,
I just look at the situation as is.
If I may, since they don't know about it, if I may, Chuck Schumer told us why. When Trump won but was yet to be sworn in, Chuck Schumer admitted on Rachel Maddow's show in 2016 that because Trump criticized the intel agents, that they would find, quote, 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at him. For example, we know the FBI illegally spied on Trump's team, accusing him of colluding with Russians. And they used, in order to spy on him, evidence that was obtained by the Hillary Clinton team, which they got by colluding with a Russian spy named Igor Dashchenko, or a suspected Russian spy named Igor Dashchenko. When you talk about the intel agencies, the FBI, etc., it is clear that they've done things such as a bare minimum illegally spied on Trump. 51 former agents signed off on that on that letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was fake, which affected the 2020 election. Polling shows that even Democrats admitted that as many as 1/3 of them would have voted differently had they knew that laptop was real. That would have been enough to swing the election. The intel agencies that you trust so vehemently have basically declared war on Donald Trump, which is the biggest example of corruption. Trump and Harris will eventually be gone, but a corrupt FBI and intel agencies will remain for the rest of our lives, and we need to fight back against them as they attempt to censor political candidates and the rest of us.
All right. Any other thoughts on the panel before we move into the next question? No? All right. That was great. Thank you so much. And we're going to move into a question from Bonds. Says, Amender, how is having a negative... What is this? What does that mean? Cancel tilt affect you in your daily life? Thanks for the debate.
A negative what tilt?
Cancel? It's CANTHAL. I don't know what this word is.
I could be wrong. I think they're talking about maybe the tone of your voice or an inflection. I don't know, though. That's my best guess.
Oh, well, either way. It sounds
I sleep at night just fine. Things feel pretty good. My life is pretty good. I'm doing all right.
Feeling good. That's great. Wholesome Joe, speaking of the wholesome feelings that we're experiencing here at Modern Day Debate, just tuned in. What cope did we pick for January 6th? Array Epps, open magnetic doors, Hillary's emails, Pelosi, Antifa, semantics. What did the MAGA choose now? So he's saying that you're picking from the hat, talking points for January 6th. So, I'll hand it over to you, Rob. You're nodding your head.
Yeah, no problem. I can address that. One, we correctly assumed that people like the person that asked this question and our opponents would choose to not look at the actual facts and the records of things that concern Americans and instead lament about January 6th. This is done by people that did not care about corruption, such as the illegal spying from Democrats through the FBI on Trump when they were upset about the loss of the 2016 election. They also, you could see how classy poo-pooed the fact that Kamala Harris, when there was actually insurrections occurring across this country, by the way, I don't believe they're insurrections, but using the same justification that January 6th was one, these insurrections that occurred around the country that were far more severe than January 6th, she actually promoted a bail fund for the people that burned down a police station. So we talked about that. And I'd be happy, like I've done many times, to talk to people that specify on this exact topic and be able to actually push back on it. For example, we could see that Captain Sun, who was tasked with defense on January 6th, says that it was actually people in official capacity, such as the sergeant at arms that answered directly to Nancy Pelosi, that refused to allow him to have proper security for the reasons of optics. So January 6th is a red herring. Of course, there was violence that occurred that day and should be condemned. But unfortunately, Democrats led that to being inevitable by having security be lax that day and by gaslighting America to thinking that violence is the answer when they either defended or stood by and did nothing as the left committed violence while the rest of us were locked down in the entire summer of 2020.
All right, let's chew on there. Did you have any thoughts, Classy or First Amender?
Not really.
No, not feeling that one there, Classy. We can move on.
Sorry, one more time. What was the question?
So it was more of a response to what Rob may have just put out there, but they were saying basically.
The dude gish-gallops like 12 points. Like, I don't know what to.
They're talking about January 6th, so they're talking about like what are your responses for January 6th? So he just presented.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, January 6th to me, like from what I observe, it's basically a scar in what is the peaceful democratic processes. I don't believe that Donald Trump should be anywhere near power, especially considering that he has basically created situations where, he would write a single tweet and destroy decades worth of diplomacy. That happened when he decided that he wanted to move the embassy over to Jerusalem. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm sorry, I'm moving off topic on the point. The point is, he shouldn't be anywhere near power. He is specifically has created this vitriolic stance that, I will take any milquetoast Democrat. Hell, I would take a dead dog over Donald Trump. I absolutely would. I would go that far.
What a strange thing.
Can I ask just a real quick question, if you don't mind? You mentioned, I think it's ironic we're saying that Trump supports Hitler, and then you mentioned him moving the embassy to Jerusalem, which Israel really liked. So I'm just curious, First Amender, in the Israel-Palestine conflict, are you of the camp that Israel's committing genocide?
Yes, they are committing genocide. That's correct.
It's interesting. It's interesting that I think I'm not taking a stance on that issue, but I think it's funny that the person that's going to be vehemently against Israel is criticizing
I'm not
Trump
against Israel. I'm anti-Netanyahu.
Okay. So, but that's saying that
you need to
Israel
understand
right
that
now is committing
a lot
genocide.
More complex than just like this.
It's going to say that
it's
going to say that Israel is committing genocide is going to believe someone
yes,
and think it's so serious like John Kelly that says that Trump likes Hitler. So.
Another debate that we can, like I say, visit there. Guys, you got all kinds that we could get into, but we're going to carry into another super chat. So thank you so much to everybody who's put into the super chats. You guys are putting into voting for our poll as well. We'll review that shortly. So thank you to everybody in our live chat. We are doing super chats right now. So if you have any questions for any of our speakers, now's the time to get it in. They are entertaining these chats right now. So a big thank you to all of our speakers for once again coming out and entertaining you guys and answering your questions. We really do appreciate it here at Modern Day Debate, and I hope you find it valuable as well, our speakers. So Fat Ass Dogs asks the question, Would you vote for a fat ass dog first because he's in her live chat?
Sorry,
Yes.
what was this
The answer
question?
is
Sorry,
yes.
what?
The answer
Sorry,
is always yes.
no, just ask.
Yes.
All right, so question to the Kamala
Yes.
supporters: if Kamala Harris is a trustworthy leader when it comes to the border, then why did she support abolishing ICE in 2020? And would you guys support that position?
Gotcha.
Well, the good thing is she never did. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm looking up. That information that is in fact the case. She did say that in 2020. Yeah, I mean, I don't support that. At the same time, I think that like we need to reproach not using 12th century solutions for 21st century problems. I think we need to look at what our amnesty policy is and just make it easier to become a citizen or easier to get a green card. And you're just going to have a lot less illegal immigrants. I mean, if voting is the concern, like, oh, they're going to all vote Democrat, even though like there's lots of Mexican immigrants that are absolutely voting Republican, and same thing with Cubans. So like, we don't have to deal with the xenophobia. They work really hard. Why not just have like a decent amnesty policy so we don't have to deal with this stupid wall nonsense that literally can be circumvented by just paying a $500 plane ticket and a tourist visa. And you could either also pay for cartel coyotes to make it across the border. There's a lot of ways to get to the border, and a wall doesn't really fix that problem.
Let's let Josh respond. I think Josh.
Go ahead, Josh, if you want.
Josh was making some physical cues there. He's got some
Rightfully
thoughts.
so.
Go ahead there, Josh.
Well, I just think, and I realized who First Amender reminds me of in talks like it's Steve Buscemi. I think that's maybe who people are thinking of. But I just wanted to say,
Buscemi, yeah.
he throws out there xenophobia, transphobia. Me and my colleagues said at the beginning that what they were going to do is launch ad hominem attacks on people. They were going to call them bigots. They were going to say Trump was
call it what it is.
They were going to say Trump was just another Hitler. We predicted all of this and exactly how they were going to talk.
Because he is.
Done it. But just because a policy or something militates against the interest of someone who's Latin America or someone who says they're trans, it doesn't ipso facto mean that thing is in fact transphobic or xenophobic. And so they're just really experts at trying to dodge the issues, deflect from the issues, and then launch an attack and say something is xenophobic or transphobic. And I'm sure other people are noticing that.
First, can I just real quick, just to clarify your position, you agree with Kamala Harris that says her values haven't changed, correct?
No, her values change all the time. It's fine.
So she's lying? She's lying when she just announced at the debate that her values haven't changed?
Based on what time scale, Rob?
She's being asked specifically about her commentary in 2020. And she says...
Wait, you said it from 2020 to 2024 correct. Then?
Yes, and she said in 2024...
Okay, so what policy are you referring to?
Let me finish. When asked about, in general, the changing of her policies, she said, quote, "My values haven't changed." Do you think she was lying when she said that?
I don't believe a mistake is a lie, but do you think Donald Trump lies?
No, that's not. I understand the deflection. I'm just trying to ask something specific. It is a deflection because I don't think she did lie. I think she's being honest. She says when asked, she's like, "Look, Classy, tell me if I think I'm trying to steal, man. What you said earlier was, well, she's just learned more. It's not that her values have changed. She just now understands that certain things are practical and things in the past may not have been. Correct? That's sort of what you were saying. But you don't think her values have changed, correct?
I don't think her values have changed.
Okay, so you're different from First Amendment here, who just seems to want to be difficult and argue for the sake of arguing. So given that, if her values haven't changed, as she said is her official position now, if her values led her to want to dismantling ICE, and the only thing that's keeping her from that at this point is she can't, is that something we should support?
Your statement is so broad. You're saying her values changed based on what? What exact speech are you referring to? My position hasn't changed. On what? What is she talking about? In general, I would probably say in general, yeah, that would result in something being different for another. Like, what is this argument?
Okay, the vagueness of it is because this is Kamala Harris's work. You're right to be confused.
You're making the argument.
It's not that I'm
Not
making
Kamala.
an argument.
Am I talking to Kamala right now?
I am articulating what Kamala's argument was.
God.
Her argument was that the reason when asked about changing so many policies, she said, well, my values haven't changed, and then gave this vague platitude that didn't explain what policy positions have changed.
Okay, so it's not her statement, it's her values.
It's
That's
her
correct.
statement
her values
that
haven't
her values
changed.
haven't changed. That's
her values have not changed. That would be correct.
But you just said that wasn't correct.
That they had.
No, because a value isn't a statement. That's not necessarily the same thing.
I think you're confused. I'll ask one quick question. This is a simpler one. You said that walls don't work. Kamala Harris used to agree with you, but now she's saying part of her plan is building a wall. Do you condemn that?
Not necessarily. If it will placate ridiculous Republicans, then fine. Go ahead and build the stupid wall. I mean, are you going to make the wall 40,000 feet tall so that way we can stop planes from coming over in traveler visas? What are you arguing? Assume there is a wall. Assume that you can just eminent domain every single bit of land, which, by the way, you're already going to deal with a problem there. Assume that you get all of that and you get all your eminent domain, you destroy all of that habitat, and you screw over all of the Native Americans that have areas that have ownership over that land. Okay, now what, right? You've created your wall. They're coming over in tourist visas. What did you accomplish?
Okay, like we could talk about the effect of the wall, but I don't think that's germane to the topic I'm talking right here.
God.
What we're talking about is, okay, let's say that you're right, that the wall's bad for all the aforementioned you just said, eminent domain, taking land away from people. Kamala supports the wall.
I think you broke him, Rob.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I just said Kamala now supports the wall, and you were like, sure, whatever, and then gave a bunch of reasons the wall was bad.
It's to placate ridiculous Republicans that keep wanting this stupid 12th century solution to 21st century problems. Yeah, just to get the Republicans to shut up.
So I just want to be clear. You're for her plan to spend millions of dollars on a wall.
For spending billions of dollars to shut you up on this point.
So you're for spending these millions of dollars that she's suggesting, which will lead to all the harms you talked about, eminent domain, taking land away from people, that'll be easily circumvented by just flying over a sting. You're for all of that, all of those horrible harms that you outline, if it means, quote, to shut up Republicans. You're for all of those. Okay.
Yes.
You're an unserious
then they'll stop
person.
talking the silly points. Yes. And then we can actually talk about serious, actual things that actually matter and not dumb border wall crap. Yes.
All right. Let's well, we got another round of Q&A coming up here. We've got a lot more questions coming in. So we are a little bit more than halfway through, but I will let you know we've been over 30 minutes of doing this. So if you guys do want to take a second to step out, I can do some housekeeping, or if you guys want to stick around, that's totally fine. We can just carry on. Yeah, you guys sometimes make me, I mean this as much grace as possible. I sometimes feel very fortunate to be here in Canada when you guys are talking about all these things. It sounds like you got quite the situation on your hand. But yeah, me and Gandalf pipe over here might have a date after this one. You guys are wild.
Sorry.
All right, go ahead there, Josh.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, I have another interview, and I was told this ended at 9, so, well, 10 your time, 9 my time. I was wondering how much longer it goes for.
Well, I got another 30 minutes on the clock that I was going to set here just to get us through, but if you need to move quicker, we can get through them.
Josh, if you have to head out, Josh, you've been excellent. And we'll talk soon, and I can take care of the questions.
It was those 2 hours, and so I have something else that I have to do. So.
Oh, right now. Okay, that's no problem then. Well, we do appreciate you being here. If you need to step out now, if that's where you need to go. But did you want to have like a 1-minute closing before you head on out there, Josh?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, I'll give you 1 minute on the floor, and you can let everybody know where they can find you, your thoughts on the discussion, and thanks again, Josh, for coming out. It was a pleasure to host you.
Well, thank you so much. I want to thank Modern Day Debate for having me on. I want to thank all the other speakers here today. I had a great time. I think this is exactly what America needs. I think we need more open discussion. I think we need more civic debate. And I think it's okay for us all to disagree. I think it was still very productive. And I think that's what we need to bring back in this country. We don't need to censor people. We don't need to label people that have differences of opinions. Some kind of a slur. It's okay to have civil debate and to disagree with each other. And I had a fantastic time tonight. People can find me on Twitter at Josh_Sider or Instagram at JoshSiderOfficial. And I'm looking forward to a lot more discussions. And I can't wait to come back on here and debate with some other people.
Awesome. Well, you got it, Josh. We look forward to seeing you again. You have yourself a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Josh. You were great, man. Thanks so much.
Buddy.
Cheers.
So are you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right, let me fix up our screens, everybody. All right, there we're all normal again. Our faces were all over the screen for our audience for a second there, but we're back. No worries. We're going to carry into the next round of the Q&A, and thank you so much, Rob, for taking up for your side. And we'll have Classy and First Amender here versus Rob for the second part of the Q&A. So I'm sure Classy and First Amender will be kind and let you have some space there to get your thoughts out. Wholesome Joe asks, did he have a concept of a plan for ACA in 2016? Thoughts over there, Rob?
So the first thing, one of the worst things about Obamacare was the individual mandate. For example, what Obamacare ended up doing was you said you had these pool of people that were using healthcare that were paying a lot. Then you had a pool of people that were using healthcare that weren't paying. Then you had a pool of people that weren't using healthcare. And what the individual mandate was force people that weren't using healthcare to pay for it or else suffer a penalty come tax season. And in general, the people that aren't using healthcare the most are young people. So I had a lot of friends that were excited they were going to get free healthcare that never used it. And all of a sudden they found themselves either having to pay for healthcare or they had to pay this fine on their taxes. And so by removing that individual mandate, I think that was something that was good. But I will admit that although they had a plan that focused more on private exchanges and having state-to-state competition, they absolutely deserve criticism for being unsuccessful in accomplishing that. However, he was quite clear that he does not plan on repealing Obamacare this time unless they're able to work together with Republicans and, to that matter, enough Democrats, depending on how this election goes, to be able to legislatively pass something different.
All right, any thoughts on the other side, or do you want to carry on?
I'm good.
All right. Oh my, you know what? Somebody in my live chat actually just alerted me. I can't believe it. Like, just one of these moments, it's like, holy lightning shit, I forgot entirely. Hit the like button if you guys haven't already. You see, it's been a couple weeks since I've been here. I might be off my rocker just a little bit. I've been busy every weekend just screaming at people for money, living that rock star life. I've been growing out my hair and everything. I have to have something to bang around. It's been great. But so if I seem a little off my game, don't mind me. Hit the like just for Rye because, he's off his ball. All right. Thank you so much to all of our speakers and also all of our super chatters. So we got more questions. Wholesome Joe says preemptive before the GOP control Congress.
Now, is that so? I assume that was probably a question that was earlier in the debate, maybe when we were talking about the border. Is that correct?
I would imagine if you guys want to kind of try to jog our memory on where we were.
And I'll leave both you give your thoughts on it. It's an interesting criticism that I think you could levy at Trump, that when he first came into office in 2016, one of the things that is an albatross around his neck is the buck does stop with him to some extent. And from 2017 to 2019, they did have a Republican Senate, House, and presidency. And so a lot of the promises that were made in 2016 that didn't come to fruition, you have to say, why is that the case? Now, I think that a lot of Republicans really weren't on board with a lot of his agenda because they're more of establishment Republicans that didn't like that. So I'm up for that criticism. However, unfortunately for Harris, the same criticism could be made of her and Biden from 2021 to 2023. All of the things she's promising now, and she's admitting she wouldn't have done things different than Biden. They controlled the House, Senate, and the presidency then, and they were unable to accomplish any of this. In fact, gaslighting people that the economy was doing great, the border was doing great, foreign policy was doing great, and they only started talking about these things once it was an election year and then sought to blame Republicans.
Any thoughts on the other side, or do you want to carry on?
Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, what was the prompt?
Yeah, we can go back to the prompt. Like I say, usually it's a response to what you just heard, but yeah, we'll just remind you of what we had there. So
I'd love to respond to him. He just gish-gallops like 12 points, and I have to like write down all of it, and then what do I discuss? Like all 12 points? Like It's crazy.
Can I
find
like
this-
say something about the mandate though? I think it's really interesting. So like the mandate, it's one of those things where it's like it's not a popular policy, but my understanding it, the reason why you had a mandate is because it's supposed to help keep healthcare costs down. So interesting enough, so I live in Massachusetts, and I didn't know this about recently, but Massachusetts actually had their own individual mandate years before the ACA Act, and it actually significantly helped reduce the cost of healthcare. And you can actually see people, not just like people who like got like employer insurance, or people who just like went into the market and just bought healthcare on their own. Like their costs actually went down because if you notice, a lot of these like healthcare systems, they insurances companies, they tend to like span many states. They're really large. So the more people you have, the more people you sign up for them, the easier it is for them to kind of like manage this data. So this actually helps keeps costs down. So there are a lot of like laws out there that they're not really popular with the general population, but they're actually pretty effective like they do. A similar thing would be maybe like certain laws like regarding like mandatory like union membership. But yeah.
All
And
right.
just to be clear, under Harris Biden, healthcare costs have gone up almost every year as well. And they could have reinstated the mandate, correct, when they controlled
And
the
if
House,
only
the
we could
Senate.
just strengthen the Affordable Care Act, then
Why
maybe
didn't
we
they?
could-
That's a good question.
They
Am
have
I
done-
incorrect? Am I
They
incorrect,
have
Ryan?
done
The
that.
question, the original
They've done
prompt was
exactly
sort of
that. They plan
the-
on continue doing that. However, Republicans are currently in the pockets of lots and lots of insurance companies. So they have a vested interest to ensure that they do not get the things that they need passed. However, even despite that, they still pulled that off to some extent, but more work needs to be done.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to change your answer if you like. My specific question was when they controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency, why didn't they reinstate the mandate? And you said they have. Are you
Right?
sticking to that?
They have bolstered the Affordable Care Act, which was my original position.
But they didn't reinstate the mandate. Why didn't they? If it's good.
I don't know what you're talking about. What mandate?
Classy, do you understand what I'm talking about by the mandate?
I understand what you're talking about,
you
but
talking
I mean, I
about
would
the
have to look
tax?
into why they didn't install the mandate. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
It's
I-
okay,
you
First
talking
Amendment.
about Are you
No, I
talking
get it.
about the
The
are you
mandate
talking
that
about the
said-
tax?
Yes, and I understand you can't keep up with the conversation Classy and I are having. I was directly responding to him, so no problem whatsoever.
Nice ad hominem. All right, cool.
Okay, let's carry
I like
into the
that
next question.
demonization. It's good.
You guys are having fun. I hope you're having fun.
I'm having a
anyways.
blast.
I was
It's
gonna
great.
say it's all in the spirit of good debate. I hope so. Anyways, you guys, I don't want to get into this this after Zoom chat and really have you guys biting each other's head off. No, I think if they wanted to do that, they'd do that on screen, guys. These guys are better behaved than they want to let you believe. Lunatic Thinker asks, and this is a big one. Says question for Robb GPT. Oh, they're coming at you spicy right off the bat. Is there any reason why someone forced to run with a different VP because only a handful of the people who worked with him endorses him, excluding his previous VP obviously should be trusted?
First, love the Rob GPT comment. The cope from the Destiny Rage Quit Wikipedia Warrior fans is always sublime. So appreciate that. Second, yeah, just like with Kamala Harris, who had like a 90% turnover rate with people that worked with her. It's true. A lot of people that worked with Trump actually ended up disliking him. That's because one of the things Trump bragged about is actually one of his weaknesses, and he deserves criticism. He bragged, I put the best people around me. He did not. He is someone who was running against the establishment. And much like Chuck Schumer said, they would find 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at him. What he found was that the people he put in that had, quote, expertise to be in these cabinet positions were people that were antithetical to him actually making significant changes. For example, we could see the military brass deign to lie to him when he decided on a correct policy, which was to bring troops back from Syria. And yet they lied about the amount of troops that were there so that they could keep troops there. So yes, it's true. There were people that disliked him that were more pro-establishment. They leaked against him in illegal ways. They tried to sabotage him in illegal ways. And there are certainly some that may not like him. That has happened in other administrations where there are individuals that leave disgruntled and don't particularly like someone. So that's okay. It's irrelevant to the greater issue that we're talking about, that a Trump presidency, we could see his record was far superior than Kamala Harris, who admitted she wouldn't have done anything better than Biden.
Yeah, still coronavirus. But anyway, do you think that there's anything that do you think that there's any validity behind the things that people have said that were a member of his cabinet and left? Is there
Sure.
any validity?
Yeah, that's a very broad statement. I'm sure many things that they said would be, for example, they may have said Donald Trump is surly. There absolutely could be validity to that.
You think
Do you
that
have anything
the
specific
best
that you
thing
want
to
to ask?
argue is that he's surly?
No, you asked me a general question. Do I think anything criticism they had could have been true? Of course, some of the criticisms could have been true. Do you have something specific you'd like to ask me?
No, not really.
Okay.
You guys got it. Let's carry into that next question. Thank you so much from our super chatters and to our panel for answering your questions. Let's see here. Sorry, Emily A. They had said, Josh, will you marry me? Your voice brings me so much joy. Unlike the Kamala campaign, key, they say. Sorry, Emily, if I would have seen that a little sooner, I would have let Josh know about your wholesome affections for one such as himself. But I'll pass that along. Let's see. Fat Ass Dogs strikes again. Let's see, another question to the Harris supporters. If Joe Biden is a good president, then why is he dishonest about his mental health and refuses a cognitive test?
I think that's a fair point. I think, like, to Rob's credit, I think the Democratic Party has like kind of gaslight us on like Biden's mental state, and I think it was like a huge concern. I'm glad that like in the end, the DNC kind of got their shit together and pressured him to drop out, and now we have Harris. So yeah, but
Do you mind if I
also?
Do you mind if I
Okay,
ask
go
you a
ahead.
couple questions? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, first man. I didn't mean to.
When I first, was looking at Biden, I was almost certain that Biden would have been just fine debating with Donald Trump. Obviously, that's not the way it went down, right? I'm perfectly capable of understanding that, yes, he's got cognitive decline. Yes, that's correct. And it was correct for the Democrats to try to get him to step down, and even with high pressure, I'm perfectly okay with that. I understand the necessity of this, right? And so now we have the oldest candidate to ever run for president currently on the Republican side, right? So if you can levy that criticism towards Biden, if you are unpartisan, you ought to be able to levy that criticism towards Trump.
But it's clear, as you admitted in the debate with Trump, clearly Trump had the cognitive ability to debate and Joe Biden didn't, correct? You seem to acknowledge
you
that.
had the lowest common denominator versus the just slightly above the lowest common denominator.
Also, quick
which
comment,
is apparent
though,
with the
'cause,
Kamala which is apparent with the Kamala Trump debate.
Wait, quick comment
ahead,
though. Biden did terrible in the debate, but I just thought it was kind of funny though that no one like really took notice when Trump called Biden a dumb Palestinian. I thought that was kind of funny.
Just a couple questions, like classy or First Amendment, you can answer. One, do you think that the Democratic Party and in particular Kamala Harris knew about Biden's cognitive issues before that debate?
Yes.
And so are you comfortable voting for someone that intentionally lied to the American people?
Yes.
Lastly, as Democrats, which I think you both are, let's assume that Trump
I'm
wins
not.
for a sec. Oh, I'm sorry, but you're voting Democrat, correct, in this election?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as someone, let's say that you both clearly dislike Trump and don't want to see him in office. That's a fair statement, right? Would you, given that the Democratic Party, including Kamala Harris, allowed the primary to go through, which was a de facto victory for Joe Biden, telling the American people it was cheap fakes that he had cognitive decline, and then only forced him out of office after the primary, ensuring that Democratic voters didn't get their will. If Kamala Harris loses because she was basically the worst possible candidate to replace Biden for, will you be furious that your democracy was subverted by Kamala Harris and the Democrats that didn't allow you to have a vote in the primary?
What that happens in any primary.
No, that's not true. Can you name me
that
another?
Happens in lots of primaries.
No,
where
that's
they select their candidates.
Okay, if it happens all the time, you'll be able to give me one example. Can you give me one example of when the entire party knew that someone had cognitive decline to the point where they were incapable of running for office, and yet they lied to the American
people in the primary?
Trump.
That's not true. Trump
They
doesn't
can
have those
select
abilities.
people in the primary. Yes.
No,
it
I
doesn't
understand.
require a democratic process to select who's going to be the running mate.
You are correct that legally it doesn't. However, it is
Okay,
still
so then what are you arguing?
Because we're not just concerned about with what's legal. The Democratic people, I'm not a Democrat, so why would I be enraged?
That's
what
the case
I'm
for
saying,
Republicans.
please let me finish. I'll explain this to you, right? Like what I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's illegal for them to have done what they had. I say my friend that's a Democratic voter He really wants Trump to be kept out of office. He was lied to about Biden's health. And so they voted for Biden in the primary because he's the incumbent and they almost always win the primary.
Has Trump
Then,
lied to you?
Please. Then promptly,
Dude,
what
stop
ended up happening
gish-galloping.
was, I'm not gish-galloping. I'm explaining the question.
You're bringing
It's one
12
central point.
points.
It is not 12 points. It's one central point. The point I'm making is quite simple. They lied to people to ensure that Joe Biden won the primary and so that the people wouldn't have a voice. And then they installed Kamala Harris. You're like, yeah, but
Trump
it's
lie to
legal.
you?
Question was about
Trump has lied in the past.
cognitive test. For
Okay,
Biden,
so
less
you're okay with your candidate lying to you?
Can you name me one politician that's never lied?
What?
Can you name me?
But
I
I'm not
answered
the
your
one
question.
arguing this.
I answered your question.
understand?
Can you name me one politician that's never lied?
Jimmy Carter.
That's not true. Will you admit that there are different types of lies?
What do you mean? Jimmy Carter always told the truth.
Will you admit that there's different types of
To a
lies?
fault.
What I'm
What?
saying is the unique situation here where people basically,
I mean, it's like there's like lying, and then there's like 30,000 lies during your
I will
presidency.
keep
It's
my
like a
point
whole
as
nother
succinct.
level of
If I
lying.
can just real quick, Ryan, I'll
All
keep
right.
my point as succinct as possible here.
No,
I'm merely saying
no worries.
that Democrats should be furious that they didn't get a say in who ultimately would be their candidate because they were lied to, which made Joe Biden the de facto incumbent that wins the primary. And then immediately were told by people you admit were lying,
Yes,
never
because
mind,
he
he
was the
can't be there,
president.
and their votes didn't matter.
That's how that works. The
All
incumbents
right,
always
We're
end up
moving
being
on,
the
so I
next running mate.
appreciate you, First Amender and Rob, for getting your thoughts out there.
Sorry.
Like I said, I think the audience has definitely gotten flesh out on that one. But let's get into the next one before we cut too deep. You guys are just going at it. That's fun. We don't mind that though. That's what modern day is all about. Modern day debate, I should say. My goodness, like I said. I can't do this. I'm just too tired. No, honestly, guys, hit the like button. Appreciate you hanging out in the live chat, asking all your questions. But yeah, let's see. The Heavy Hearts Show says dudes on the left are fake patriots. Oh, he's just coming in to say. Some people come in to say
I'm a true
nice
patriot.
things.
I'm trying to fix this that's behind me. See what's behind me? I'm trying to fix that. I want to fix that.
Well, we can definitely talk about that another time because I'm not sure what's going on there. But for First Amenders audience or Rob Noors or Glassy, Neurotic, whoever's watching, and I'm sorry if I said your name wrong there, Rob. But yeah, if you haven't already, hit the like button, head on over to Modern Day Debate, take part in our poll, even just for a second. I know there's some people that are watching in other various spaces of the internet, but if you want to come out here and support your speaker and hit the like button, make sure that lots of people see this and boost it up in the algorithm. We appreciate you guys. Let's see. The Heavy Hearts Show strikes twice and says Kamala loves imprisoning non-violent black men. So I think they're making a commentary on previous records that I may have heard. I've heard this in a debate prior, so I don't know if there's more commentary that First Amendment or Classy would like to make on this. Amender.
Yeah, so I don't think her record is perfect, but I think her record's pretty interesting because I think my understanding of this, I should have honestly, I got my notes for ready for this because I was going to pull it up. I remember that reading that basically the amount of people arrested or convicted for marijuana offenses actually went down during Harris, and that actually kind of surprised me. When I was looking at my brain's not working here, but like basically back in 2020, I didn't want her as candidate of choice. And one of the things like I heard was like, oh, she was just like locking up like black people in prison or whatever, and I kind of believed it, but then I looked into it on my own and I found out that it's actually not exactly like that. And she actually has a pretty good record. And I remember reading about that. She actually started a program to reduce recidivism on the youth, and I think that's pretty good. I think she's a good example of someone that's trying to work within the system to reform the system. But of course, her record's not perfect. I think like they're just just by the fact that you're working for the criminal justice system or working for the police department, that you're gonna have hiccups like along the way.
Yeah. Do you want to carry on? I think we got another one coming in from Heavy Hearts. And Also, Classy, yeah, no worries. Yeah, like I said, I've been having a couple brain tunes myself here. It also can be difficult when you have full-on headphones. I usually just have a single earbud in. It's a lot easier, I find, just with a single earbud. But when you get the full, wrap around, it's the audience is gonna get me for that. But when you get your full headset, it's going to it does mess with you a little bit. Your
I think when you moderate too, especially when you're trying to bring up super chats, you're multitask. It makes it difficult to do that stuff and sort of listen to the back and forth. So I think you're doing a fine job.
Oh, no worries. I just know sometimes I'm right on it. I didn't do my red, yellow, leather before this gig. You know how it goes. All right, so the Heavy Hearts show strikes third. Says First Amender has a transfixiation. Pretty weird. Keep virtue signaling. It's still clear you're a bad guy. LOL. Well, that's not very once again, he's not being very kind on the end there, but did you have anything to say to the Heavy Hearts show right quick? So
I'm used to it, but bro, I got to tell you, I'm very pro trans people. I love trans people. I love the inalienable rights of all individuals, and that includes the rights of trans people. And the reason why I said that, I'm not going to talk bad about him, but I don't believe that you're a libertarian if you believe that the government should come after your body and tell you what to do with your body. And yes, that includes trans people in bathrooms.
So if an adult feels that they are actually really a 10-year-old, should they be allowed to use 10-year-old bathrooms?
That has nothing to do with trans people. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm just saying that would still be the government telling certain people they can't do something with their body.
That has nothing to do with trans people. I don't know what you're talking about.
The question I'm asking is, you clearly say that there's a limit. At some point, the government's allowed to step in, even a libertarian.
Yeah, I'm referring to trans people, not
okay, but I'm asking you.
We have age of consent, and I'm not.
I'm asking you.
I believe in like some level of regulation, and I'm perfectly okay with age of consent laws.
Okay,
I don't know what
that's the only like
right.
you're being competitive.
We'll let Rob ask his question, and then we'll let you close this.
You don't have to be competitive. I'm just saying, at some point, you would say yes, it's not a violation.
I'm saying
libertarians,
not a libertarian.
One second there. When he asks, we'll let him ask his question, and we'll let you close this one out there, First Amender.
Right. I'm just making a point about not being a libertarian, because if he feels that this is encroaching on other people's spaces, you could still be a libertarian. Think that you think he's wrong on this specific issue, which is fine. I'm not wading into that debate. I'm just trying to see how far this stretches to say you would clearly say it could be a libertarian position to say, well, we don't want adults in locker rooms with children. You would be okay with that, correct? Saying that they couldn't do that.
Adults in locker, where are you going where there's like children in locker rooms?
Well, for example, like restrooms in elementary schools. I guess
there's
10-year-olds not
the.
I guess 12-year-olds. So when I was in junior high, we had locker rooms. We showered in the gyms, etc.
Yeah, in high school.
Like, okay, 12-year-olds then. But then instead of 10-year-old, let's say 12-year-old. Would you think it's a violation and against libertarian principles if we said we don't want? Yes, in middle school, I had showers in locker rooms. Would you say it would be against libertarian principles? I assume what you would say is, of course, that's fine to say that adults couldn't be in there. Correct? That's what you would say.
As long as there's not any abuse, I don't see any issue.
So you would be okay with allowing adults to identify as children and use locker rooms?
When the hell did I say that?
Okay, that's the clear question that I was asking. So you're against it.
I've already said no to that. Why are you asking?
Okay, that's all I was saying. You're being very combative. I just assume you would say no, and I'm just trying to make a point. You could disagree on whether or not he's correct when he says that's a violation of women to allow biological males in, but I'm just saying that idea isn't against libertarian principles if he's right on that point.
Last thought for
yes,
First Amender. Was that it, First Amender? You want to carry on?
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry.
No need to be sorry. Like I said, we're having fun. This is all part of having the debate and having the discussion. So, Radical Coder, glad to see you hanging out in the live chat. Maybe we'll see you on Modern Day Debate here again soon. Definitely hit me up in the emails and whatnot, and we'll see if we can get you in. So, Radical Coder asks, just got here and heard Josh Stradamus predicted someone would talk about xenophobia in a debate about a guy who tried to impose a Muslim ban. That's so impressive.
Yeah, I wonder if we were talking about Obama, if we would have also been saying that he tried to impose a Muslim ban, because the ban that he suggested was used as the countries that were suggested when Donald Trump actually did use policy to temporarily halt certain countries that had a record of terrorism. The list from those countries that he got was directly from what Obama and his State Department came up with. So I wonder if our opponents here would have been saying, this was xenophobic of Obama. Do you think when Obama suggested that those countries maybe should halt the amount of people that are coming because they were supporters of terrorism, was it xenophobic for Obama to do that?
I think if you're targeting specific dangerous individuals, that's very different from targeting a group of people.
So if you target a specific, okay, well, that's basically the policy that Trump ended up advocating for. One other question I'll ask about this, because Classy, you brought this up. He
wasn't targeting specific individuals. He literally targeted all Muslims.
Okay. One other question that I'll ask you specifically, Classy, because you brought it up earlier. You did talk in your opening statement, you talked a lot about, or maybe it was you first, remember, I apologize if I don't, it seems like a while ago, the opening statements, and some of it was quite melodical. So it's difficult to remember exactly what was going on. But you both seem to speak of sort of Trump's xenophobia and the fact that he was talking about certain things that it increased hate crimes. If hate crimes went up against Russians after the Russia collusion hoax, was that xenophobia on the part of Democrats?
No.
Why not?
Because they were specifically criticizing the Kremlin and not Russian people, though.
Okay, but
you had Donald Trump talking about referring to COVID-19 as a Kung flu. Like, I don't think it's a fair comparison.
What he was doing was he was talking about this coming from China. It seemed odd to me that the racist position was saying this came from a Wuhan lab that was partially funded by the United States, and that was deemed racist. However, the non-racist position was backwards Chinese people eat bats and pangolins at a wet market.
Do you think that
I think you just worded
came from a lab?
Like, really strangely. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we know based on genetic studies that would have came from a marketplace.
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay,
that's in fact, even though it was claimed that it was debunked, now the majority of our intel agents are saying that the evidence seems to suggest that it most likely came from this lab. And it's a huge debate.
The FBI director said that, but that's not what virologists are saying and experts in the field.
True.
It's 100% true.
You are correct.
If you observe the initial survey statistics where they were looking at infection or people who were infected with the novel coronavirus, there was that which was northwest of the Yangtze River, and then there was that which was southeast of the Yangtze River. On the southeast of the Yangtze River, you have the Wuhan Institute of Virology. On the northwest of the Yangtze River, you had the Wuhan market. When you look at the overall statistics data that they pulled, they basically sampled pretty much everybody in that area. They found more positive sample sets that were around the Wuhan market, not the Institute of Virology. That's one big, giant problem. That is a very strong indicator that it came from the Wuhan market, not from the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
So there's a lot of ins and outs that we could talk about, the specific science of it. Your claim that sort of is all encompassing, that virologists are suggesting that, is true that there are some virologists that say that. However, so you're saying it's all. That's your argument.
No, most.
Almost there are very credible virologists that are saying the opposite. Also, we could see that
but that's not most.
So, for example, we saw 51 scientists. You're right. Did speak up.
I'm sure there's physicists that are flat earthers.
Please, why do you find it so difficult to allow someone who's trying to engage in
because you say so many wrong things.
It's not true. It's your opinion that they're wrong, but if you're not winning the debate, you're not doing great anyways.
Strong facts.
No, you didn't.
I just did. Yes.
No, you didn't.
There were independent researchers.
That's not. That's
it's ridiculous.
True. You're not giving facts.
Yes, it is. You can pull this up in
I just brought
data.
up something specific.
This is under the WHO.
We're letting Robb have the last word on this one. Sorry.
You're incapable of following a conversation. I'm not saying that it wasn't facts, that you talked about the Yangtze River, etc. I'm saying that you said something like all virologists or most virologists said that. You said that most virologists said, you can't even contain yourself here.
Yes, most, yes.
You said that most, and you're like, that's a fact. That's a fact. When I'm trying to interrogate that position, and you constantly interrupt and won't let me get my position out. What I was going to say.
Because you say wrong things.
So again, you wouldn't even let me get out what I was going to say. It's clear that you're incapable of holding back, right?
Yes, because I'm not going to let you gish-gallops.
The next one is for you, so I'm sorry to put you on.
I'm going to finish my point real quick, right? The point that I'm trying to make is we could see that there is an incentive for these virologists to speak on that, such as the 51 that has signed the letter from Nature magazine that was sponsored by Peter Daszak, that we found out that Daszak was one of the very people that was instrumental in funding gain-of-function technology in the Wuhan virology lab. So yes, they had financial stake. mistake and coming out so universally saying it's debunked. It never was debunked. They censored people that said it. And I'd be more than happy to have a debate in you thoroughly about whether or not it's more likely that it came from a lab than otherwise.
All right, this next one is for you, First Amender. So I did want to leave it with Rob so that I could bounce this over to you. You have somebody who's being critical of your performance throughout the Q&A is what I've gathered from this. Another new account says, first, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What was the question? So that's in quotations. They're quoting you saying, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What was the question? And also First Amendment, he gish-galloped the whole time. So they're saying that you weren't paying attention and then accused Rob of gish-galloping.
Yeah,
so
I apologize. I'm ADD as fuck. I'm not gonna hide that. I mean, that is the case. I do need sometimes someone to repeat it, but yes, he is gish galloping. He says many wrong points, steamrolling the conversation, which is classic of people who just like to debate these points. It's just ridiculous. It's obvious to me what his game is. And, I mean, I don't know, I guess other people find that convincing, but I don't find it very convincing.
No worries.
This is often something that's criticized by people that aren't able to keep up in a debate. So they'll talk about these sorts of tactics. I can keep up. Please, you can't. You just admitted you have ADD and you didn't.
This question was for First Amendment.
Okay,
so.
If you don't want me to answer, that's fine. I think he gish gallops. Wow, who wins?
Yeah. Oh, I guess that kind of isn't.
Well, I can just make one point.
You can't. Like, for example, when we were talking specifically about Kamala Harris now funding a wall, you went on this tirade about, but people overstay visas and they can fly in airplanes and they did it. Okay, so you're saying you did gish gallop, but it was warranted in that point because the wall is stupid.
Well, yeah, wall is stupid. So okay. I gave the point why it's stupid.
Thanks for admitting that you gish galloped. Thank you.
What? That doesn't mean you don't gish gallop. You gish gallop every single point.
You're criticizing.
Why don't you stick to one point at a time?
That's fine. I got out when I needed.
I even apologized mid conversation because I realized what I was doing.
No worries. Like I said, there's no need to apologize. Like these things are just natural, and sometimes I make the wrong call. People will get at me in the live chat and say, Ryan, you should just let things go and let things just flow. And I'm sorry to people that think that I may have made the wrong decision here and there. That's just how she goes. But I don't ever
get. You're doing fine, James.
James.
That's right. The people that would most care.
Oh, sorry, my fault, Ryan. I just see your name at the bottom there.
The people that would most care on this panel, I don't think any of us have a problem with. I don't have a problem. Everything's going fun.
I don't get too insecure about it, but I do like to remind the live chat, like, don't get too caught up on it. Like, there's only so much we can pull out of 4 people in the run of a show. Okay, so. I think we're doing great, honestly. So the Heavy Heart Show says, sorry, I was pretty harsh. What is with everybody apologizing tonight? We've got the Canadian crew in or something. I swear, I must have drew them in. Everybody's apologizing. All right, Radical Coder says, his exact words were, a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what is going on. And he asked Rudy how to do it legally.
What was the policy that he eventually implemented? Either of you want to say? Was that policy that he eventually
implemented? The point
is
that's what he wanted. Just acknowledge that that's what he wanted. Is that what he wanted? Yes or no?
What he said initially is correct. That's what he said because he was fearful of Islamic terrorism.
Okay,
when
so
they started to look into
it, wasn't specific people then, was it?
Yes, it was specific people, a group of people.
No, it's not. It's all Muslims. You just agreed to that.
Let me finish. When you say it wasn't specific people, yes, you could say that about anything. For example, if we said we want to ban all people from Iran, you could say, but that's not specific people. That's just all encompassing all people from one country. So in that vein, yes, it wasn't specific people in that anything that's broad encompassing won't be specific
saying to
people.
Ban Muslims
but what I'm saying is that the policy that he eventually implemented came from the Obama State Department that banned specific countries that were mass exporters that they felt would potentially be mass exporters of terror. The policy that he implemented was the same that the State Department.
After he realized what he was saying was insane. Yes, correct.
You may disagree
with this, but
you may disagree with what he initially said. But my question to you is, if he would have just banned people from Iran, would you still say? I'm asking a simple yes/no question. If his policy was just,
I'm not going to let you railroad.
Okay,
this.
You won't answer a yes/no question. That's what you're saying.
Ask your question. Okay. I'll answer your yes or no.
If instead he would have said we want to ban people from Iran and never made this comment about Muslims, would you say that's not specific people, or would you say that is specific people?
No, it's not specific people.
Right.
That's an entire country of people.
Right. So then your criticism would have been levied that would have been similar even with Obama. Of course, there's going to be very difficulty from
What
any
about
policy.
this other thing not related?
Of course, there's going to be
We're talking
criticism.
about Trump. What
your
about
specific criticism is, he didn't ban specific people. And what I'm telling you is I can't
That's
imagine.
correct. You said he banned specific people. However, that's not what he argued. He
never
wanted to
said
ban
he
all
said,
Muslims.
I never said that he said ban specific people. In
yes,
fact,
you did. Oh my God. I'm so glad that this is on VC. So that way other people we can clip this. You understand that you're not going to gaslight the conversation?
Right. Just like you tried to gaslight the conversation when you said from
gaslight
2021 to 2023 that crime didn't go up. What I'm telling you is there is a miscommunication on what the term specific people means. I thought specific people, what I termed by that
is Muslim specific people.
No, just like people from Iran isn't.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so in that sense, almost every State Department in history has instituted policies that aren't based on specific people. Every single administration has done that. And your criticism is Trump did that too. Cool. Then I misunderstood what you meant by your term specific people. Yes, any policy that any administration ever does that doesn't say this policy is specifically for Robb Noor and Ryan and Classy Neurotic, if it just says this specific policy is for people under the age of 21, that would be a policy based on how you're defining the term specific people that wasn't targeted towards specific people and is something to lament. I find that to be a point that means nothing. Yes, every policy isn't targeted towards specific people. Great. Okay.
Your argument is just a whataboutism. You're saying, well, what about this other thing that's not related? When
that's
we
not
proved
what
that
I'm doing.
by
your
saying
criticism
Muslims, you've already contradicted yourself.
I have not. The criticism you made was that he had a policy that wasn't directed towards specific people. Did you say that?
Last thought there.
But no, I'm just going to let you continue. I'm not going to answer the question.
Cool, I know.
Okay, we are going to carry in and to our last question. Well, it's our last question so far. There might be another one that might pop in while we go through this one. That's what happened here, guys. Technically, Radical, you would have had the last question, but then Harbargnar came in with his question. I did mess up Radical Coder's super chat, though. At the very end, he said, ha. That was, he said in the live chat, I forgot the laugh. So I guess he wanted an audio laugh. I got you, buddy. I did it. So Harbargnar says, as a Democrat, I would have loved to see a better performance from a fellow Democrat in First Amendment. They got a typo. But the eye-rolling and childish behavior is optically undesirable. Robb is impressive as always. So I'll let you respond to that one first, Mender, since we don't usually have response to just chats that are just huzzah chats. So they're a fan. They are happy with what you've put on the table there, Robb. We'll let you respond right quick, First Amender, and then if we have no other super chats, we'll go into our closing. So the floor is yours, First Amender.
I apologize. I'm a very animated person. I just tend to do that. I use a lot of hands gestures and I just, I don't know. Me and Robb don't get along, but if you liked my work, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you.
Can I be clear? I have no personal saying don't get along. I don't feel that way. I think that some of the behavior in the debate I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of, but it's nothing. It's no skin off my back at all. I enjoyed the interaction so much. I don't wish any ill to any of you, and it's not that I don't get along with you at all. I enjoyed it and would talk to you again anytime.
All right. Well, let's get into the closing statements. Classy, I do want to, just before we get into that though, just to give you a chance here. Did you have any thoughts or anything you wanted to say to any of our audience members or anything about our discussion here? I know that you've been chewing for a little bit over there, and I don't want to make you feel like we're trying to count you out here. Like, you are welcome to jump in at any time.
No, I'm good.
No? Okay. All right, well then let's go into those closing statements. I go in the reverse order. So Robb, you are going to have the first minute on the floor to let everybody know where you're at, your thoughts on our discussion tonight.
Yeah, so I think that I made clear when it comes to the specific policies, as I said in the opening statement, that we already have a record of Trump versus Kamala. And when it comes to the issues that people are most concerned with, the economy, immigration, and foreign policy, things were much better. I don't think that our opponents did a very good job. They did exactly as I predicted. They talked, even in their opening statements and all through, about how Trump is this universal menace. These things are blown out of proportion. The American people want people that will make groceries affordable, that will protect their border, that will ensure that their children aren't going going in some world war to fight across the world. They want a government that cares first and foremost about them and not sending money overseas and allowing people that aren't vetted into this country. And so because of that, I think it's obvious that Donald Trump is the preferred candidate. All of the gnashing of teeth about authoritarianism, I would be happy to have the discussion about the authoritarianism of Democrats, but I thought it was important for the American people and the people listening to understand these track records on the important issues matter. You can find me at Normal America with Rob Noor on YouTube. I'm also on other platforms. If you just look up Rob Noor, as you see it spelled on the channel there. Also, I believe Modern Day Debates has put at least the link to one of my channels up there. I think my X channel. Yep. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to you and all of the people here. I enjoyed myself thoroughly and hope it was good and informative content for the audience as well. So.
Awesome. Well, it was appreciated on this end as well. And yeah, definitely hit the like button, everybody, if you appreciated our stream tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Classy Neurotic to give a 1-minute closing on where everybody can find you and your thoughts on our discussion this evening.
Yeah. Look, I know that like Trump supporters get really nervous when talking about January 6th because if you read the indictment, if you read the Colorado case, it's pretty clear. There was an assemblage and people were basically essentially trying to overturn the results of the election. We still don't have any confirmation whether or not Trump would accept the results of this election. We'll see. I wish I did talk. I could have talked a little bit more about policy. I did have some notes ready to talk about a little bit of policy, but it got a little bit crazy. But I think I'll be a little bit more aggressive next time. I know a lot of people are kind of ripping on First Amender, but I kind of like his energy, actually. But look, at the end of the day, go to the Kamala Harris website, look at the issues. I think she has some pretty good policies. It's a mixture of good progressive and moderate policies that would help people. Independent economists have reviewed both of Trump's and Harris's plan, and they found that Harris wouldn't contribute that much to the deficit as much as Trump, and it will give working class Americans more money in their pockets, whereas making the top 1% pay their fair share, whereas Trump would kind of give most people money, but it wouldn't give working class people as much money in their pockets as Harris's plan. But overall, whatever, we had a good discussion, and hopefully I could do more in the next time. And yeah, thank you. And of course, if you want to follow me, just on Twitter or YouTube, Classy Neurotic, and yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Classy Neurotic. We appreciate you being here. We're going to hand it over to you, First Amender. Thank you for your lively, spirited debate tonight. We appreciate you. So 1 minute on the floor. It's all yours.
Josh had argued that the Biden and Harris are synonymous. Vice presidents don't make decisions, and so that's not necessarily the case. He said that there's no policy platforms. They are on Kamala's page, and yes, they are in fact different. There is this argument that he presented quietly regarding school choice. That results in some schools doing great, while others don't necessarily do great. On Robb Noor, he said that Trump gets people to come out and vote. Yeah, maybe vote against him. There are people that are struggling to buy groceries. That was true throughout the entire world. That had nothing to do necessarily with Biden or Trump. They want to import voters. Illegal and even some legal immigrants cannot vote. So I don't know where you're getting that information. The rest of the workers pay a harder price. Yeah, so generally speaking, we should reinstate strong worker rights like unions, which is something that Kamala Harris would argue for. The ones cook the book, you can't trust it. Great. So what can you trust if it's not the Federal Reserve or the FBI crime statistics for economic data? Trans people in prison argument. Kamala supports. What she had stated was that she wants medical care. Anyway, I get there's a lot of people that really hate me, and I argue that I think that we ought to stop Donald Trump in his tracks, but I don't find his policies to be successful. I just think we need a leader that will actually listen to his experts and help the president. I'm First Amender on YouTube, and I'm on the Modern Day Debate Discord channel on discord.gg/modern day debate. If you ever want to speak and you like my work, consider subscribing.
Absolutely. Thanks for that shout out, First Amender. We really appreciate that. Yeah, definitely check out our Modern Day Debate Discord. That's moderated by, I got to say this right, Anathemata. There we go. I said it right this time. Sorry, Shane. I've known you for so long, but I never can. It's like my other friend. I can never say his last name for the longest time, and then he corrected me one day. I was like, "Whoa, my life is forever changing." Anyways, ran by our good friend there. So Hannah's in the Discord running it as well. A modern day debate. Yeah, definitely check it out if you want to get your debate chops up and running here. I'm going to pin that. Thanks for putting that in our chat. There we go. So our modern day debate: Trump or Harris. No worries, brothers, says Anathema. Anathema. Yeah, see, I can't say these names, I swear. So 55% for Trump, 45% for Harris. That is where we close out on our poll, everybody. So we had a lot of fun here at our debate tonight, Harris versus Trump. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you to all of the people on the panel. We're going to close it out, and there you go. I got that pinned there, Shane. So we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.